Chapter 344. Yun Zhanfei's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly recalled the time 9 months ago when the sun was shining brightly but the sky suddenly turned dark. The feeling back then was exactly the same as it was now. Could it be that the sky turned dark back then was also caused by Yixing's astrology? Yun Zhanfei was extremely shocked. At that time, he was in the Flying Cloud sect, which was tens of thousands of miles away from the Falling Star sect. How could Yixing's astrology cause the sky to turn dark from tens of thousands of miles away? Moreover, Yun Zhanfei was not the only one who felt the sky turning dark back then. The other martial artists in the Flying Cloud sect also felt it. Yun Zhanfei immediately raised his guard. Yixing's black hole astrology made him feel terrified and alarmed. Whoosh! A ray of starlight shot out from between Yun Zhanfei's eyebrows and turned into a golden star that floated in the sky. The golden star shone brightly and tore apart the darkness around Yun Zhanfei, causing everything within a 100-meter radius to be covered in golden light. As an astral realm enlightened being, Yun Zhanfei had an absolute advantage over Yixing in terms of cultivation. Therefore, his astrology could break apart the world of darkness created by the black hole astrology. However, Yun Zhanfei's suppression of Yixing's cultivation was limited. The golden star could not break apart the world of darkness completely. It could only illuminate the area within a 100-meter radius. For Yun Zhanfei, being able to see the area within a 100-meter radius was already enough. It was much better than being blinded by darkness. As soon as Yun Zhanfei's golden star tore apart the darkness, Yixing took out the purple firmament bow and shot out an arrow. Whoosh! The arrow pierced through the air. A few 100 meters was not a distance at all. As soon as it left the bow, it was already in front of Yun Zhanfei, aiming straight for his throat. Hee hee. Yun Zhanfei sneered and waved his spiritual weapon. A ray of sword energy flashed and knocked the arrow away. He said disdainfully, "Weak archery." Whoosh! As he spoke, Yun Zhanfei swung his sword. A sword light instantly broke through the air currents and shot towards Yixing. Even though Yun Zhanfei's range of vision was limited and he couldn't see Yixing's exact location, as a real person, Yun Zhanfei's senses were extremely sharp. The moment Yixing shot the arrow, Yun Zhanfei was able to determine Yixing's location. At the same time, Yun Zhanfei also used his sword steps. His entire body was like a shining sharp blade. In a flash, he appeared where Yixing was standing just now. The sword energy sliced through the void, and the golden stars shone in all directions. Yun Zhanfei's counterattack was extremely fierce. With his strength, even if his opponent was also a one-star enlightened master, he could easily crush most of them. As a sword Dao expert, Yun Zhanfei's strength was definitely top-notch among one-star enlightened masters. However, Yun Zhanfei's lightning-fast counterattack missed. Not only did Yixing circulate the Heavenly Bat Steps technique at the consummate level, he also used the Azure Cloud Wings, causing his speed to reach an astonishing level. In an instant, he had retreated several miles away. Whoosh! Another ray of starlight shot out from between Yixing's eyebrows. It turned into a giant starlight bow in the sky. Yixing used the Sagittarius constellation and finally revealed his trump card. He was going to shoot his strongest arrow at Yun Zhanfei. The grand momentum of wind, fire, and darkness. Yixing used the 3 grand forces of heaven and earth and merged them into the arrow. At the same time, there was also the terrifying Sagittarius constellation's star power and the power of his archery attainment. It made the arrow's power even more terrifying. Yixing's current archery attainment was almost catching up with his master, Zi Shanhou. Moreover, he had the Sagittarius constellation, so the arrow he shot was only stronger than Zi Shanhou's. Just like how Zi Shanhou killed the Dong Fuzong enlightened master, Yixing also circulated the Azure Cloud eyes when he shot the arrow. Instantly, 2 clouds whirlpools appeared in his eyes. Zi Shanhou's Azure Cloud eyes only cultivated the upper part of the Azure Cloud eyes. On the other hand, Yixing's Azure Cloud eyes was a complete extreme-grade spiritual martial art. Other than the Azure Cloud eyes, he also cultivated the Cloud eyes. Naturally, Yixing's azure cloud eyes had a greater effect on the target's thinking. In terms of archery power and eye technique, Yixing had already surpassed his master, Zi Shanhou. If Yixing's opponent was Watanabe Ing, his arrow would definitely kill him. However, Yixing's opponent was not Watanabe Ing. They were both one-star enlightened masters. Yun Zhanfei was an expert in the sword Dao and his strength was at the top level. On the other hand, Watanabe Ing was only an ordinary one-star martial saint. Their strengths were not at the same level. Just as the cloud's whirlpools appeared in Yun Zhanfei's eyes, two rays of sword light suddenly flashed and his eyes instantly became clear again. A powerful swordsman had a heart as firm as a mountain. He had an unshakable will and his mind was unshakable. Unless Yixing's strength was able to completely suppress Yun Zhanfei, he would not be able to use his azure cloud eyes to suppress Yun Zhanfei's will. However, it was obviously impossible now. Yun Zhanfei had already blocked two of Yixing's arrows. He did not think highly of Yixing's archery skills. During the battle, he did not notice that in the sky, another Sagittarius constellation had appeared beside the black hole constellation. Facing Yixing's arrow, Yun Zhanfei revealed a disdainful smile. He did not dodge or even retreat. Instead, he moved forward and waved the spiritual weapon in his hand to meet the arrow. Useless. Yun Zhanfei's voice was filled with disdain. He originally wanted to say, useless archery skills. However, he had obviously underestimated the power of the arrow. Before he could finish his words, a crisp sound rang out. The spiritual weapon was instantly deflected and the spiritual weapon was instantly deflected. However, the power of the arrow was still extremely terrifying. It continued to shoot towards Yun Zhanfei's throat. Yun Zhanfei's expression changed drastically. His hair stood on end and he felt a chill on his back. If the arrow pierced through his throat, Yun Zhanfei would definitely die. Ah! Yun Zhanfei let out a loud roar. It was not a scream that came from being shot by the arrow. At this moment, his essence, qi, and spirit merged as one. The star energy in his body burned and the middle-grade flying spiritual weapon flapped on his back. In an instant, his speed had reached its limit. With a loud roar, Yun Zhanfei's body turned into a shadow. In an instant, he had dashed a few miles away. The arrow had hit his neck. However, it only hit the edge of his neck and caused a line of blood. It did not hit the vital part of his throat. At this moment, Yun Zhanfei's burst of speed was extremely fast. He managed to dodge this sure-kill arrow. However, he was not out of danger yet. With a thought, Yixing changed the direction of the arrow and continued to shoot towards Yun Zhanfei. Swoosh! 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 Yun Zhanfei's gang qi was extremely thick. When he felt the sharp aura behind him, he knew that the danger was still there. In an instant, he changed the direction of the arrow 3 times. Swoosh! 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 The arrow moved according to the thought. Yixing's arrow also changed 3 times in the air. Yun Zhanfei had used up all his gang qi, but he was still unable to dodge the attack of the arrow. In the blink of an eye, the arrow had caught up with Yun Zhanfei's body and shot into his back. 3 changes according to the thought. Yixing's state of mind had been upgraded. His mental strength had increased and he had reached the same level as his master, Zi Shanhou. Moreover, this was only the initial upgrade. With the addition of Yixing's Taoist connotation, there were still many comprehensions that he had not digested yet. If he was given a period of time, he would only need 10 days to half a month to digest all the comprehensions and use them for his own use. Regardless of whether it was his martial arts attainment or the level of his mental strength, there would be more improvements. The arrow contained an extremely terrifying force. After it had shot into Yun Zhanfei's body, it exploded instantly. The terrifying force was almost like a cannonball exploding. If a martial sage had been hit by Yixing's arrow, his body would have definitely been torn apart by the force contained in the arrow. Although a perfected person's physical body was not much stronger than a martial sage's, the quality of the astral energy in his body was extremely high. When the astral energy was locked, it would be tougher than an ordinary spiritual weapon. When the terrifying force exploded in Yun Jianfei's body, it did not explode him into pieces. Instead, it had firmly pierced into his back. Of course, the terrifying force contained in the arrow had caused great damage to Yun Jianfei. Although his body was protected by the astral energy, the place where the arrow had hit had his internal organs shattered and his meridians severed. The place where the arrow had hit was not far away from his heart. Due to the impact of the arrow, his heart had also been damaged. This was almost a fatal injury. Yun Jianfei spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as ash. Yun Jianfei raised his head and saw the Sagittarius constellation in the sky. His eyes were filled with unwillingness as he said, "So you still have a trick up your sleeve. You are actually a monster who possesses 3 types of astral energy. I hate you. I hate you. Will my monthly votes exceed 100 today? I'm looking forward to it." Chapter 345. With Yun Jianfei's strength, if he had not underestimated Yi Xing and had gone all out, he would have had an 80 to 90% chance of blocking that arrow. The arrow just now was Yi Xing's strongest attack. If it had been blocked by Yun Jianfei, Yi Xing would have had no chance to turn the situation around. He would most likely have lost this battle. This was not a duel in a grand competition. This was a battle of life and death. Losing meant death. Yun Jianfei was severely injured after being hit by the arrow. His body was in excruciating pain and he could not circulate the astral energy in many parts of his body. His strength had been reduced by half. The outcome of this battle had been decided. Yun Jianfei would definitely die. As a perfected 1-star cultivator, Yun Jianfei should have been the winner of this battle of life and death. However, because he had underestimated Yi Xing, he had sent himself to the path of death. Yun Jianfei's heart was filled with unwillingness. Yi Xing drew his bow again and shouted coldly, "Go to hell." Swoosh, the arrow left the bowstring and the dragon roared. It was the azure dragon arrow style again. Yun Jianfei had unleashed his strength to the limit. "Let's die together." Yun Jianfei knew that he was going to die. He immediately burned all the astral energy in his body. He was overdrawing his life force to increase his strength. Swoosh, a ray of sword light pierced through the void. Yun Jianfei's entire body was shining brightly. He faced the arrow and rushed toward Yi Xing. With a clink, the sword energy and the arrow collided. The azure dragon's shadow dissipated. The purple-gold arrow turned into a ray of cold light and shot into the distance. Yun Jianfei was burning his astral energy and life force to increase his strength. Not only did it make up for the loss of strength due to his severe injuries, but it also made his strength stronger than usual. When a perfected one went all out, it was extremely terrifying. This was especially true for Yun Jianfei, who was one of the top perfected ones in the same realm. At this moment, Yun Jianfei could defeat anyone in the same realm. Even a perfected 1-star cultivator would have to avoid him. The azure cloud wings flapped and Yi Xing retreated explosively. At this moment, Yun Jianfei's perception had reached an unheard of level. He could sense the airflow and sound that Yi Xing created as he moved through the void. Even if he couldn't see Yi Xing, he could still lock onto Yi Xing's body. At this moment, both Yun Jianfei's strength and speed had increased by a level after burning his life force. The distance between him and Yi Xing was rapidly closing. Die! Scorching sun in the sky. Yun Jianfei was bleeding from his 7 orifices, but he had a crazed expression on his face. The spirit artifact sword in his hand shone even more resplendently. It was like a scorching sun, making it hard for people to look at it directly. In an instant, he caught up to Yi Xing and thrust his sword at him. The golden constellation in the sky poured down an endless amount of astral power, which was absorbed by Yun Jianfei's sword. This was the strongest sword strike of his sublimated life force. After this sword strike, whether his target lived or died, Yun Jianfei would die. This sort of terrifying attack that erupted without regard for one's life was the most terrifying. Even someone with similar strength might perish together with it. As he drew back, Yixing put away his bow and took out the high-grade spirit artifact, the Black Dragon Spear. If Yun Jianfei were still conscious, he would be shocked once more. Yixing actually had 2 high-grade spirit artifacts on him. However, Yun Jianfei had already gone mad and his mind was no longer clear. There was only a single thought in his mind, and that was to kill Yixing and perish together with him. As for the Black Dragon Spear in Yixing's hand, he completely ignored it. Darkness Spear Curtain. With the Black Dragon Spear in hand, Yixing focused his mind like never before. His might erupted to the limit as he used a defensive spear move. The Black Dragon Spear danced about, turning into a curtain of spears that collided with Yun Jianfei's sword. Bang! With a loud explosion, the Darkness Spear Curtain was instantly torn apart. With a puff, Yixing spat out a mouthful of blood. Yun Jianfei's spirit artifact continued to erupt with a dazzling light as it thrust forwards. However, Yixing's figure was nowhere to be seen. Yixing had already clearly scanned this sword's trajectory, weakness, and flaws. As he used the Darkness Spear Curtain to resist, he had already dodged to a safe area. Yixing's speed erupted with incredible speed. Although Yun Jianfei's mutual destruction sword strike had wounded Yixing, it hadn't caused any fatal injuries to Yixing. Whoosh, Yixing's blue cloud wings flapped. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed several miles. Yun Jianfei's sword missed. With a loud roar, he slashed out with his sword again, chasing after Yixing. However, just as this sword thrust out, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He could no longer withstand the burning astral energy within his body, causing his life to rapidly fade away. Bang! The burning astral energy within Yun Jianfei's body went out of control and exploded, causing his body to explode into pieces. The sword light instantly disappeared. With a clank, the spirit artifact sword was thrown forward and fell to the ground. A few miles away, Yixing stopped. He retracted his astrology and slapped his chest. A mouthful of blood spurted out. His body went limp and he sat on the ground, panting heavily. This battle was extremely dangerous for Yixing. If Yun Jianfei hadn't looked down on him, an 8-star martial saint, and hadn't used his full strength during the battle with Yixing, Yixing's arrow might not have been able to injure him. The result could have been reversed. The one who died might have been Yixing. Moreover, if Yun Jianfei wasn't just a 1-star martial saint, if he was a 2-star martial saint, Yixing would have died in this battle. Luckily, the one who chased after me wasn't a 2-star martial saint. Luckily, Yun Jianfei was conceited and looked down on me. Yixing rejoiced in his heart. After taking a healing elixir, Yixing immediately took out 2 low-grade star crystals to heal his injuries and restore his celestial essence. Yixing's injuries weren't serious and he recovered quickly. However, his celestial essence recovery was slower. It would take him at least half an hour to fully recover. He didn't dare to stay here for half an hour. The other party had a Class 3 flying demonic beast, and it wouldn't take long for it to catch up. After Yixing recovered from his injuries, he got up and walked towards Yun Jianfei's corpse. Middle Grade Spirit Artifact Sword. Middle Grade Flying Spirit Artifact. Yixing picked up all of them, including Yun Jianfei's storage ring. The first thing Yixing did was to refine Yun Jianfei's middle grade flying spirit artifact. The owner of the middle grade flying spirit artifact was dead, so refining it wasn't difficult. After about 20 breaths, Yixing refined the middle grade flying spirit artifact and put it into his body. His celestial essence surged, and a pair of black wings appeared on Yixing's back in an instant. Very good. The Clear Sky Wings is a top-grade flying spirit artifact, but it consumes too much energy for me. I can't fly for a long time, so I can only use it when escaping. This middle-grade flying spirit artifact is just right for me. I'll give it a name, Black Feather Wings. The Clear Sky Wings is too precious. If exposed, even the masters of the 9 great sects would covet it. I can't let others know about it. It's better to use the black feather wings at ordinary times. Yixing secretly said in his heart. Yixing used his star fire to burn Yun Zhanfei's corpse to ashes. He then tore his blood-stained clothes and threw them on the ground, pretending that he was dead. Then, he took out a set of clothes from his storage ring and put them on. With a flap of the black feather wings, he instantly soared into the sky. Shortly after Yixing left, the four-winged flying snake arrived with Chizhua, Tan Watanabe, and the other enlightened masters. There should have been 12 of them. Excluding Yun Zhanfei, who was chasing after Yixing, there were still 11 of them. However, there were only 9 of them on the four-winged flying snake and 2 enlightened masters were missing. When enlightened masters fought with their lives on the line, they could unleash extraordinary combat strength by burning their astral energies and overdrafting their life force. Even though Tan Watanabe had more enlightened masters on his side and was stronger, they had to pay a huge price to kill the 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Star sect. Lu Tianyuan and Qi Dosheng had dragged an enlightened master of the Dongfu sect down with them before their deaths. Although the other 3 did not manage to kill their targets, they were severely injured. The 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Star sect were dead while the other party had 2 dead and 3 injured. Although it seemed like the number of casualties was unequal, it was extremely difficult to cause casualties in a situation where there was a huge disparity in strength. Of course, if not for Chizhua's arrows from afar, the casualties would have been much higher. However, Chizhua's arrows were too powerful. Even enlightened masters of the same cultivation realm could not withstand them, let alone those below 3 enlightened masters. Because of Chizhua's arrows from afar, the 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Stars sect had no hope of escaping even if they managed to break out of the encirclement. They could only fight to the death. The enlightened masters jumped off the four-winged flying snake's back and observed the traces of the battle. There were bloodstains, burning ashes, and Yixing's blood-stained clothes. Yixing is dead. Where's Yun Zhanfei? Why didn't he join us? Did he want to take the superior-grade air transportation spiritual artifact for himself and run away? To make up for yesterday's second update. Looking for recommendations on Monday. Chapter 346. The Flying Clouds sect was in great trouble. Yixing and Yun Zhanfei fought, but no one thought that the one who died was Yun Zhanfei. The true sages thought that the person who was burned to ashes was Yixing. As for Yun Zhanfei, he had snatched away Yixing's treasures and wanted to take them all for himself, thus he had run away. On Yixing's body, there was not only a high-grade flying spirit artifact, but also a high-grade spirit artifact, the blazing flame set and the black dragon spear. These were all items that had been revealed at the 10-sect grand competition. Moreover, as for the four-winged flying snake's madness, no one had been able to react at first. But as they thought about it, they realized that Yixing must have obtained the top-grade spirit weapon, the Eye of Blue Cloud, in the Blue Cloud ancient land. Thus, he was able to interfere with the thoughts of monster beasts. The Eye of Blue Cloud was a top-grade spirit weapon. In the Blue Cloud region, it was a priceless treasure. If so many treasures were obtained by Yun Zhanfei, then as the true sages thought about it, no matter who obtained these treasures, there was no reason for them to be shared with others. Thus, it made sense for Yun Zhanfei to take all the treasures and run away. This was what the true sages thought. Although they understood Yun Zhanfei's feelings, if they were in his shoes, they would also do the same. But the true sages were unhappy. Extremely unhappy. As they thought about how so many treasures had been taken away by Yun Zhanfei, the true sages hated Yun Zhanfei to the bone. Poor Yun Zhanfei. Even after his death, he was hated by everyone. However, Yun Zhanfei's initial thought was to take all the treasures and run away. The true sages didn't wrong him. However, no one expected that Yun Zhanfei, a 1-star true sages, would chase down Yixing, an 8-star martial saint, and in the end die under Yixing's hands. An 8-star martial saint killing a 1-star true sages. Moreover, he was a top-class 1-star true sages. Of the 9 true sages present, not a single one of them had this thought. Occasionally, this thought would flash through their minds, but they would immediately reject it. If Yun Zhanfei hadn't caught up with Yi Xing, then it would be possible. But if he had caught up with Yi Xing and fought with him, then Yi Xing would have absolutely no reason to escape. The enlightened masters were certain that the dead person was Yi Xing, and they were certain that Yun Zhanfei had taken all the treasures for himself and escaped. Because of their hatred for Yun Zhanfei, all the spiritual masters were filled with anger towards the other spiritual master of the Flying Cloud sect. Cho Buhong was a 2-star sage of the Flying Cloud sect. He had a high position in the Flying Cloud sect, and his position was comparable to the sect master Yun Zhangkong. He was one of the top 3 powerhouses in the Flying Cloud sect. However, at this moment, Cho Buhong's back was drenched in cold sweat. Qizhua, Watanabe Tan, and the rest of the 8 perfected masters were glaring at him angrily, causing his hair to stand on end. Cho Buhong cursed Yun Zhanfei 1,000 times in his heart. Yun Zhanfei had taken so many treasures for himself, he would definitely not return to the Flying Cloud sect. However, if these people could not find Yun Zhanfei, the Flying Cloud sect would have to take the blame for Yun Zhanfei. Cho Buhong said with fear, "Everyone, Yun Zhanfei was only blinded by the treasures for a moment, and his mind was muddled. He will definitely return, and our Flying Cloud sect will also find him and make him hand over the treasures so that we can divide them equally." Cho Buhong was afraid that the 8 spiritual masters would vent their anger on him. If they were to make a move on him, he would be reduced to ashes in an instant. Qizhua's face was very ugly. He was a spiritual master of the Sun Moon sect. If Yun Zhanfei took out Yi Xing's treasures and distributed them, the Sun Moon sect would get the best things. However, Qizhua did not even get a single thing. Even the Falling Star sect master's ring, Lu Tianyuan had already given it to Yi Xing. It could be seen that Yun Zhanfei had it as well. Qizhua looked at Cho Buhong coldly and said, "Everyone, listen up. Put Yun Zhanfei on the wanted list in the entire Qingyun region. If he hands over the treasures, everything will be fine. Otherwise, the Flying Cloud sect will pay the price." Kunyan Mountain Range, Star Crystal Vein. Yi Xing used the black feather wings to fly all the way here. After reporting his identity, Gu Tianshang opened the array and Yi Xing entered. There were multiple level 3 arrays set up by Lin Fenghua here. It was the last fortress of the Falling Star sect. Of the 14 spiritual masters of the 6 went to the old site of the Azure Cloud sect, 6 stayed in the sect, and 2 guarded the Star Crystal Vein. This was the last strength of the Falling Star sect. The 2 spiritual masters guarding the Star Crystal Vein were both 1-star spiritual masters. They were the War Pavilion Elder Lin Dongsheng and the Affairs Hall Elder Zhang Maosheng. When Yi Xing passed through the array, the first person he saw was Zishan Ho. "Master!" Yi Xing immediately ran up, looking surprised and happy. Hua Tianshu and Zishan Ho had a grudge against each other. Now that the Falling Star sect was destroyed, Hua Tianshu would not let Zishan Ho go. Therefore, Yi Xing had always thought that his master, Zishan Ho, was doomed. He did not expect to see Zishan Ho in the Star Crystal Vein and was pleasantly surprised. Zishan Ho's eyes were also full of surprise. Good. Yi Xing, it's great that you can come here safely. My Falling Star sect is not destroyed, and there is hope for a comeback." However, in the depths of Zishan Ho's eyes, there was a hint of sadness. The fallen gate had been broken, and his most respected Grand Elder Lin Xiuyuan had died in battle. Even when he saw that Yi Xing was safe and was pleasantly surprised, the sadness in the depths of his heart did not dissipate. After the surprise, Yi Xing also showed a sad expression. "I was lucky to escape, but, the sect master and the elders, they..." Yi Xing thought of the scene where Lu Tianyuan and the others let the purple flame monarch eagle carry him to escape, while they fought the enemy to the death. He was extremely angry and sad, unable to speak. Zishan Ho patted Yi Xing's shoulder and said, "We already know that Yu Pinghai betrayed the sect, and the sect master and the others died in battle in the Azure Cloud Mountain Range, but they did not regret it. Their last concern was whether you could come back safely. Now that you are here, it proves that they did not die in vain. They can rest in peace in the underworld. Before Lu Tianyuan died, he used the communication bead to send a message to the star crystal vein, asking Gu Tianshang to keep an eye on the outside and wait for Yixing to come back. Gu Tianshang and Zishanho had already discussed this matter, so Zishanho naturally knew what happened to Lu Tianyuan and the others. On the side, Gu Tianshang also walked over. His hair was still white, but the wrinkles on his face were gone. His skin was much smoother, and he seemed to be dozens of years younger. Gu Tianshang walked to Yixing, patted Yixing's shoulder and said, "Yixing, the future of the Falling Star sect depends on you. You have to work hard to drive the East Fu sect out of the Falling Star Kingdom as soon as possible, and rebuild the Falling Star sect." Yixing nodded. He looked at Gu Tianshang with surprise and said, "Elder Gu, you have broken through to the astral realm?" A perfected cultivator in the astral realm had a lifespan of 200 years. Gu Tianshang was a half-step perfected cultivator in his 80s, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. Now, he was dozens of years younger. Without looking at his hair, he looked like he was in his 40s. There was only one possibility, and that was that he had broken through and increased his lifespan. That was why he looked younger. Gu Tianshang nodded, and there was a look of enlightenment in his eyes. He said, "I was lucky to break through, sigh." It seemed that Gu Tianshang was not happy about breaking through to the astral realm. Zishanho said, "There was also a traitor in the star crystal mine." Elder Zhang Maosheng of the affair hall suddenly attacked and severely injured Elder Lin Dongsheng. He wanted to destroy the formation of the star crystal mine from the inside, and kill Elder Gu. If the Falling Star sect was taken over by the East Fu sect, then the Falling Star sect would lose its last piece of land. At the critical moment of the sect's survival, Elder Gu broke through the bottleneck of decades and became a level 3 array master, a perfected cultivator in the astral realm, and killed the traitor Zhang Maosheng. Zishanho sighed and continued, "Elder Gu achieved enlightenment, breaking through both the Tao of formations and the Tao of martial arts. This should be a joyous occasion, but the price is too great." Elder Gu's voice was melancholy. He said, "If I could choose, I would only want the Falling Star sect to be safe and sound. I would have no regrets if I could not break through in martial Tao and array Tao in this generation." Gu Tianshang had been stimulated by the life and death of his sect. He had been enlightened and resolved the inner demons that had imprisoned him for decades. A great talent matured slowly, and he had made breakthroughs in both martial arts and formations. If it were not for this experience, Gu Tianshang would not be able to make any progress in either array Tao or martial Tao at his old age. The cause and effect of this was indeed costly. No wonder Gu Tianshang was not happy even though he was enlightened. He would rather not be enlightened at all. Looking for recommendation votes ++++++1. Chapter 347. Yixing was silent. Like Gu Tianshang, his cultivation had broken through to the 8th level of the star vortex realm because of the destruction of his sect. His state of mind had sublimated, and he had broken through. Although this had greatly increased Yixing's cultivation speed, Yixing and Gu Tianshang had the same idea. If the Falling Star sect was not destroyed, and if Master Lin Fenghua and sect leader Lu Tianyuan were not dead, Yixing would rather not break through. Sigh. Yixing was touched and sighed. Zishanho patted Yixing's shoulder again and said, "The sect has been destroyed. You are the only hope of the Falling Star sect. The future of the Falling Star sect is in your hands. You must be strong and pull yourself together." Yixing nodded. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and said, "My family." Although Yixing had burned Yun Zhanfei's body to ashes and left a false impression that Yun Zhanfei had killed him, the other party might not believe it. If the other party knew that he was not dead but couldn't catch him, then his family might be in danger. Although Yixing's feelings for the Ye family and his parents were very faint, or even close to none, he didn't want the Ye family to suffer because of him. The Ye family was his starting point in the Star Continent. Yixing only wanted the Ye family to develop better and better. Zishanho comforted Yixing and said, Chu Jingyue told me that Hua Tianshu had betrayed the sect. After the sect was destroyed, I went to your family immediately and brought your parents here. As for the entire Yi clan, because there are too many people, there's no time, and there's no need for that. You've already left your clan, and you're a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Even if the Dong Fu sect wants to force you, they will only target your parents, not your clan. The East Rising Star sect was one of the 6 southern sects, while the Ye family was only a small family in the Falling Star Kingdom. There was a world of difference between the two. For a family like the Ye family to have such an accomplished warrior like Yixing, other than their own family members, the rest of the family members were not close. The East Rising Star sect knew that they couldn't use the Ye family to force Yixing out. Using a Rising Star sect to deal with an ordinary warrior's family was simply lowering their status. The only possibility was that the Dong Fu sect had captured Yixing's family and used them to force Yixing. However, that wouldn't have much of an effect, as the chances of the Dong Fu sect doing something like that were very low. However, Zishanho eliminated that possibility and immediately brought Yi Feihong and Lu Yi to the Star Crystal Mine to protect them. Yixing was surprised. Chu Jingyue. Did she escape? Zishanho nodded, because she is Hua Tianshu's disciple, she managed to escape the calamity. The moment her sect was destroyed, she escaped on a black-feathered eagle and came to Zishan County to tell me the news. Otherwise, I would have been encircled by Hua Tianshu's men and died. Now, Chu Jingyue isn't doing well. Hua Tianshu has taken her life essence. She's now pale as if she's 70 or 80 years old. I'm afraid she won't live for more than a few years. Yixing was shocked. How could this be? Zishanho sighed. I heard from Chu Jingyue that she's practicing a technique called the art of marrying beauty. This technique should be a kind of evil technique. It's very smooth to practice, but there's a disadvantage. After practicing it, one's life essence will be sucked away. Hua Tianshu must have practiced a beauty cultivation technique that can restrain the art of marrying beauty. She absorbed Chu Jinyue's life essence just to preserve her appearance. Hua Tianshu again. Yixing's heart surged with an extremely strong murderous intent towards Hua Tianshu. Yixing said, where is she now? I'll go see her. In Yixing's heart, Chu Jingyue was one of his few friends. She was much more important than Yi Feihong and Lu Ao. Yixing only wanted to hear the news of Yi Feihong and Lu Ao's safety. He didn't want to meet them, but after hearing news of Chu Jingyue, he couldn't help but want to visit. Zishanho waved his hand, she definitely doesn't want to meet you now. You'd better not go see her. Yixing frowned, how can she be cured after losing her life essence? Zishanho said, this isn't an injury, but the loss of her life essence. Even a pill that can revive the dead can't save her. However, some heavenly treasures that can prolong her life and replenish her life essence may be able to restore her youth. However, this is the same as the pill that can revive the dead. It only exists in legends and is something that can only be encountered but not sought. Yixing said, sigh. This can only depend on luck. If I encounter a heavenly treasure that can prolong her life in the future, I'll try to get it and help her. Not to mention his friendship with her, just the fact that Chu Jingyue had informed Zishanho immediately after the sect's destruction allowed Zishanho to escape from Hua Tianshu's revenge. Moreover, she had also allowed his cheap parents to safely arrive at the Star Crystal Mine. Yixing had to do his best to repay her kindness. These things will depend on the future. Let's talk about it later. Gu Tianshang interrupted their conversation and said to Yixing, now, your first task is to increase your cultivation and quickly break through to the astral realm. Increase your strength and drive the East Fu sect out of the Falling Star Kingdom as soon as possible. Then, rebuild the Falling Star sect. Yixing nodded and said, I understand, but cultivation can't be rushed. I've just broken through to the 8-star Martial Saint realm. No matter how much I cultivate, it's hard to increase my cultivation in a short time. I'm going to cultivate martial skills and increase my strength first. In 3 months, the Young Hero Assembly held by the 9 sect alliances will begin. I want to represent the Falling Star sect and fight for a good ranking. Both Gu Tiansheng and Zishan Ho laughed. Gu Tiansheng said, I can guarantee that your cultivation will reach a higher level very soon. Zishan Ho nodded at the side. Yixing asked in surprise, why? Gu Tiansheng said, there are joys and sorrows in life. Today, the sect's destruction is heartbreaking. However, what happened today is not all bad. There is also a good thing. Yixing looked at Gu Tiansheng and Zishan Ho in surprise. If it could be called a good thing at this time, then it must be a great thing. Gu Tiansheng said, today, there was another discovery in the star crystal lode. In the depths of the lode, there are higher quality star crystals. Below that, there is a middle-grade star crystal lode. In the middle-grade star crystal lode, there is a higher quality star crystal spiritual milk. Originally, I planned to distribute the star crystal spiritual milk to the 10 elite disciples who entered the Azure Cloud ancient land. Now, only you have returned. Moreover, you are the hope of reviving the Falling Star sect. All the star crystal spiritual milk in the middle grade star crystal lode belongs to you. It will allow you to increase your cultivation at the fastest speed and rebuild the Falling Star sect as soon as possible. Yixing's eyes widened as he exclaimed, middle grade star crystal lode? Star crystals were divided into low, middle, and high grade. One high-grade star crystal was equivalent to 100 low-grade star crystals. One middle-grade star crystal was equivalent to 100 low-grade star crystals. In the Azure Cloud region, high-grade star crystals were a legend. Middle-grade star crystals were extremely precious. Setting up a level 3 array and restoring astral energy would require a lot of them. In the entire Azure Cloud region, no one had heard of a middle-grade star crystal lode. The middle-grade star crystals in the hands of the top 10 sects were all exchanged from other places in the True Xian domain. For the 6 sects in the southern part of the Azure Cloud region, the middle-grade star crystals of the enlightened masters and elders of the sects were probably only a few thousand. Even the richest sect only had tens of thousands of middle-grade star crystals. However, a mid-grade star crystal vein would contain an enormous amount of mid-grade star crystals. There would be at least 1 million mid-grade star crystals. In other words, a middle-grade star crystal lode was worth more than 100 sects of the same level as the 6 southern sects. One could imagine how much wealth this was. Not to mention the 6 southern sects, even the 4 northern sects were worth less than half a middle-grade star crystal lode. It was no wonder that Gu Tiansheng said that it was a good thing when the Falling Star sect was going through a calamity. It was indeed a great thing. Even the 9 upper sects might not have a middle-grade star crystal lode. The Falling Star sect had a middle-grade star crystal lode, so it would not lack financial resources to rebuild the sect in the future. What it lacked was strength. As long as it had the strength to rebuild with the financial support of the middle-grade star crystal lode, the Falling Star sect would definitely develop rapidly and become the overlord of the Azure Cloud region. Compared to the value of the entire medium-grade star crystal lode, the star crystal spiritual milk that was produced along with the lode was something that could only be found by chance, but it didn't shock Yixing as much. After all, Yixing had seen star crystal spiritual milk before. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio. Chapter 348. The low-grade star crystal vein was located between 100 and 1,000 meters underground. 1,000 meters underground was the mid-grade star crystal vein. As for how deep it was, it had not been explored yet. The star crystal spiritual milk produced by the mid-grade star crystal lode was about 1,000 meters underground. However, Yixing had to walk a few miles to get to this place. The star crystal spiritual milk was located in a natural underground hall. It was very spacious, more than 10 zhang high, and almost 100 meters wide. When the miners excavating the low-grade star crystals found the star crystal spiritual milk in the center of the hall, they reported it to the person in charge of the star crystal vein, Gu Tiansheng. Lin Dongsheng and Zhang Maosheng were perfected persons who were in charge of the star crystal vein. Gu Tianshang was only a half-step perfected persons, so his position was lower than theirs. However, the formation of the star crystal vein was completely controlled by Gu Tianshang. Therefore, Gu Tianshang was the real person in charge of the star crystal vein. The two perfected persons were responsible for guarding the star crystal vein. Therefore, they only reported the mid-grade star crystal vein to Gu Tianshang. When Gu Tianshang heard about it, he immediately blocked the news. At the same time, he also sealed the hall where the mid-grade star crystal vein was located and sent his trusted subordinates to guard it. No one was allowed to enter. Now, Gu Tianshang had let Yixing absorb the star crystal spiritual milk. After bringing Yixing here, he naturally dismissed the guards. Yixing looked at the star crystal spiritual milk in the center of the hall. The amount was about the same as the low-grade star crystal vein, but the quality was one level higher. The star crystal spiritual milk in the low-grade star crystal vein allowed Yixing to break through from a half-step martial saint to a 2-star martial saint. It seemed that the star crystal spiritual milk here could help him break through to the 9th level star spiral realm, or even higher. Yixing withdrew his gaze from the star crystal spiritual milk pool and said, "Master, Elder Gu. There are many things I haven't fully comprehended yet. I may need to cultivate in seclusion for a while. If I don't come out, you don't need to worry." Zi Shanho nodded. Gu Tianshang said, "You can cultivate in seclusion for as long as you want. I'm waiting for you to soar to the sky." After Zi Shanho and Gu Tianshang left, Yixing did not rush to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk pool. He had just broken through to the 8-star martial saint realm today. Although his mental state was strong enough to continue improving his cultivation, and he could use the star crystal spiritual milk to replenish his energy and make another breakthrough, it was too fast. After all, his foundation was unstable. Moreover, when Yixing's state of mind was sublimated, Taoist connotation was added to his body. He had a lot of enlightenment, but he didn't fully understand it. He had to strengthen his comprehension while he still had the feeling and completely transform it into his own. Otherwise, if too much time passed, the feeling would disappear, and it would be extremely difficult to comprehend anything again. His greatest gain during these few days was that his comprehension of thought force had once again increased by a level, and it had attained the 4th level. Zi Shanho's power of heart was only at the 3rd stage. When Yixing fought with Yun Zhanfei, his power of heart was also at the 3rd stage. 9th stage of heart force. The first 3 levels were of 1 grade and were relatively easy to raise. The middle 3 levels were also of 1 grade and were much more difficult to raise than the first 3 levels. The last 3 levels were of 1 grade and were extremely difficult to raise. Yixing's heart force broke through from the 3rd stage to the 4th stage. This was a qualitative breakthrough, a huge breakthrough. This meant that Yixing's archery had reached the level of 4 transformations. As his attainments in archery improved, Yixing's attainments in the 4 symbols archery technique also improved. Although he had yet to practice archery, his intuition told him that his 4 symbols archery technique had reached the consummate realm. The power of thought was closely related to a cultivator's martial attainments. With the 4th stage of heart force, it was not difficult for Yixing to cultivate the 4 symbols archery art to perfection. This also included the dark spirit spear art and heavenly bat footwork art that had long reached perfection. Yixing stopped comprehending. The 4th stage of heart force was an extremely high level of comprehension among astral realm sages. Yixing was only an 8-star martial saint. He had only reached this level by chance. Now that he had passed the state, it was impossible for him to continue improving his comprehension of heart force. Yixing was not in a hurry to cultivate martial arts. Instead, he sat down beside the star crystal spiritual milk and absorbed it, preparing to break through to 9-star martial saint. Although Yixing had only broken through to 8-star martial saint for a short time, the battle with 1-star martial saint Yun Zhanfei had allowed him to completely familiarize himself with the cultivation state of an 8-star martial saint. After 5 days and 5 nights of comprehension, it was also very beneficial to his consolidation of cultivation. Although his cultivation foundation was not very stable now, it was enough for him to break through to 9-star martial saint. The Young Hero Assembly would be held in 2 months. At that time, Yixing would be facing the younger generation of the entire True Xian domain. Many of them would be true human realm geniuses with great strength. Yixing knew that it would be difficult for him to compete with the younger generation of true human realm geniuses with just the cultivation of an 8-star martial saint. Therefore, he had to improve his cultivation. Yixing used the black hole astrology and the high-grade falling star art to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk. His cultivation increased rapidly. The quality of the star crystal spiritual milk was different, so the speed of absorption was very different. When Yixing was a half-step martial saint, it only took him a little more than 2 hours to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk in the low-grade star crystal vein. Now that he was an 8-star martial saint, it took him a whole day to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk around him, but he had only absorbed 1/3 of the total amount. After a whole day, Yixing's cultivation finally had a qualitative breakthrough. The star vortex in his dantian expanded and reached the limit of the star vortex realm. The strength of the star essence in his body continued to increase. The higher the strength of the star essence, the closer it was to the star essence. It would be easier to transform it into star essence in the future. 9-star martial saint, the last stage of the celestial vortex realm. Yixing had never dared to dream of reaching this stage in the past. Now, he had already reached this stage before he was even 18 years old. Some dreams and goals seemed very far away at first. However, after a period of time, when one looked back, one would realize that one had unknowingly reached or even surpassed one's dreams or goals. At this time, when one thought about the past, one would realize that it was silly to be confused and worried about the future. When Yixing thought about the past, he became even more confident. Since he could reach his goal now, then one day in the future, he would definitely reach his current goal and become the most powerful warrior in the star continent, reaching the peak of the martial Tao. After breaking through to the 9-star martial saint, Yixing continued to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk. The next realm breakthrough was from the star vortex realm to the astral realm. The half-step enlightened being in between was just a transitional stage. It could not be considered a cultivation breakthrough. Therefore, Yixing could consolidate his cultivation to the half-step enlightened being in one fell swoop. He could stop cultivating before the next cultivation breakthrough and wait until he had completely adapted to the half-step enlightened being's cultivation before breaking through to the astral realm. Breaking through to the astral realm is easier said than done. I'm afraid that even if I absorb all the star crystal spiritual milk here, I still won't be able to break through. I'll just absorb it boldly. Let's talk about it later. Yixing observed the amount of star crystal spiritual milk and thought to himself. 2 days later, not a drop of star crystal spiritual milk was left. All of it had been absorbed by Yixing. Yixing's cultivation had stabilized to the half-step enlightened being. Moreover, half of the astral energy in his body had been transformed. He was at the peak of the half-step enlightened being. Thanks to Yixing's continuous cultivation, the high-grade falling star incantation had risen another level, reaching the 4th layer. This caused Yixing's astral stars to be extremely condensed and of extremely high quality. Compared to enlightened 1 star's astral stars, they were only inferior in terms of quantity. Feeling the surging energy in his body, Yixing was confident that with his current strength, he would not be inferior to Yun Zhanfei in a head-on battle. If he used all his trump cards, he would be able to kill Yun Zhanfei in a matter of minutes. This was not blind arrogance, but genuine confidence. He had fought Yun Zhanfei head-on before, so he was clear about Yun Zhanfei's strength. In terms of martial arts, he was not inferior to Yun Zhanfei. In terms of astral energy, he was not inferior to Yun Zhanfei. Moreover, Yixing's comprehension of the grand momentum of heaven and earth was far superior to Yun Zhanfei. Other than the fact that his astral energy was inferior to Yun Zhanfei's and that he could not fight for a long time, he surpassed Yun Zhanfei in all other aspects. Chapter 349. Yun Zhanfei is much stronger than Watanabe Ing. Amongst the one-star true masters, he should be relatively strong. My current strength surpasses Yun Zhanfei's by a great deal. Sweeping away the one-star true masters shouldn't be a problem. I just don't know if I can fight a one-star true master without revealing the Sagittarius constellation and the Black Hole constellation. Yi Xing muttered to himself as he stood up, feeling the surging strength in his body. My heart force has reached the 4th level. It won't be difficult for me to cultivate the 4 symbols arrow art, dark spirit spear art, and heavenly bat steps to the boundary of perfection. Moreover, I can also cultivate the astral flame fist to a higher level. If my martial arts attainments can take another step forward, then even if I don't use the Sagittarius constellation and the Black Hole constellation, I should be able to sweep away a 2-star true master. In the following time, I will cultivate martial arts with all my strength and increase my strength. With a thought, Yi Xing lifted his hand and the high-grade spirit weapon, the Black Dragon Spear, appeared in his hand. But in the blink of an eye, the Black Dragon Spear was put away by Yi Xing. The Dark Spirit Spear art was immensely powerful. In particular, with the Dark Spirit Spear art at the perfection boundary, just how powerful would a single spear thrust out be? This was an underground cave. If Yi Xing were to use this move with all his strength, the entire hall would collapse. Yi Xing's current strength was enough to contend with an early true master. At this degree, he couldn't casually cultivate martial arts anywhere. Yi Xing left the underground hall and returned to the surface, finding Zi Shanhou and Gu Tianshang. What? You want to go out adventuring so soon? Just what degree has your cultivation reached? I can no longer see through it. As Zi Shanhou and Gu Tianshang heard Yi Xing's words, they were both startled. Yi Xing released his cultivation. He nodded and said, I need a spacious place to cultivate martial arts. The space here is too small and there are array formations all around. It's not suitable for me to cultivate here. Moreover, the Young Hero Assembly is just around the corner. This place is very far from Nine Heavens City, so I have to leave early. Therefore, I won't return here after I leave this place. I will first find a place to cultivate my martial arts, then head straight to Nine Heavens City. When I return, the Dong Fu sect will be doomed. Gu Tianshang said worriedly, the true mystic region is very big. It has a circumference of 1,000,000 miles. Even a true human rank flying mount would take 10 days to half a month to reach the Nine Heavens City. The journey is very long, and you are only a half-step true human rank. It is very dangerous for you to travel alone. I don't think you should participate in the Young Hero Assembly. You are absolutely safe here. It doesn't matter if your cultivation is slow. With your potential, you will grow sooner or later. It won't be too late to rebuild the Meteor Falls sect when you have full confidence. Zi Shanhou also nodded and said, Yi Xing, you are the hope of the safety first. Yi Xing shook his head and said, if a warrior hides in a place to cultivate, not only will his cultivation speed be slow, it will also be difficult for him to achieve anything. Only by growing through experience can he become a true expert. There is something I need at the Young Hero Assembly, so I must go. Master, Elder Gu, don't stop me. Although I am alone, I have my own means to protect myself. Most of the true human rank experts can't do anything to me. Yi Xing was eyeing the Young Hero Assembly's first prize, the Resurrection Pill. Although he felt that with his half-step true human rank cultivation, the chances of him winning the first place were not high, he still had to work hard. Moreover, Yi Xing also wanted to see the outside world and compete with the young geniuses of the true mystic region. The world was very big, and if one wanted to become a true expert, they had to go out and explore. If one wanted to become a powerhouse in this world, they had to at least get to know this world and understand the martial artists in this world. If one didn't even understand the outside world and only knew how to cultivate bitterly in one place, how could one become a powerhouse if one didn't even know how strong one was? Yi Xing had made up his mind, so Gu Tianshang and Zi Shanhou didn't stop him. They told Yixing to be careful outside and gave him a large amount of mid-grade star crystals to let Yixing leave the star crystal lode. Yixing left the star crystal lode after dusk. He traveled in the night without anyone noticing. Even if someone was watching outside the star crystal lode, they wouldn't be able to find him. After he was far away from the star crystal lode, Yixing dispersed the dark aura and a pair of black wings grew out from his back. Whoosh! Yixing spread his wings and flew as fast as lightning towards the depths of the Blue Cloud Mountain Range. The night of the Blue Cloud Mountain Range was the world of demonic beasts. Beasts roared continuously and Yixing often saw the silhouettes of demonic beasts in the sky. To Yixing, the Blue Cloud Mountain Range was like his back garden. No matter how many demonic beasts there were, he was not afraid. Firstly, Yixing had a flying spirit tool and could fly in the sky. If it wasn't a flying spirit tool, no matter how many demonic beasts there were, they wouldn't be able to touch him. Secondly, Yixing had the eyes of Blue Cloud. Unless it was a mid-rank 3 demonic beast or above, it wouldn't be a threat to Yixing. Instead, it would be controlled by Yixing. Thirdly, if Yixing used his Blue Cloud wings to escape, even a mid-rank 3 demonic beast wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Therefore, in the Blue Cloud Ancient Land, be it day or night, Yixing was very safe. Yixing came to the depths of the Blue Cloud Mountain Range for 2 reasons. Firstly, there was no human habitation in the Blue Cloud Mountain Range, which was suitable for Yixing to practice martial arts. Secondly, Yixing wanted to find a demonic beast equivalent to a 3-star venerable and use his eyes of Blue Cloud to control it as his pet. Although Yixing had a flight-type spiritual artifact, the flight-type spiritual artifact consumed his celestial essence and energy. Moreover, the journey to the 9 Heavens city was very long, and it wasn't something that could be reached in a day or 2. Therefore, Yixing preferred to ride on a demonic bird. Although it wasn't slow, it was much easier. There weren't many demonic beasts equivalent to a 3-star venerable in the Blue Cloud Mountain Range. The closer one was to the center, the easier it was to encounter one. Yixing flew for a few hours and reached an area deeper than the old site of the Blue Cloud sect before stopping. The area where Yixing was located was a rare flatland in the Azure Cloud Mountain Range. It spanned several li in radius, and the view was vast. Regardless of whether it was practicing spear arts, light martial arts, or archery, it was an ideal location. What surprised Yixing was that he didn't find a single monster beast in this area. This place is suitable for practicing martial arts. I'll cultivate my martial arts here to the boundary of perfection and then look for a flying mount. Yixing thought to himself. Whoosh! After a long time, Yixing used his black feather wings and shot into the skies. He flew dozens of miles before finding a 3rd-level monster beast. Using his eyes of Blue Cloud to control it, he brought it to the flat area. This was a black-armored iron bull, equal to a 1-star venerable. The reason Yixing brought this monster beast here was to have it stand guard at his side. Whether it was resting or practicing martial arts, Yixing didn't want to be disturbed. Although there weren't any other monster beasts here, Yixing still had to be on guard. With a 3rd-level monster beast black-armored iron bull standing guard, it would save him a great deal of trouble. With the black-armored iron bull standing guard at his side, Yixing took a nap. After dawn arrived, he ate some food from his storage ring and then took out the black dragon spear. Using the black hole star avatar, he began to practice the dark spirit spear arts. Now Yixing had a half-step true master cultivation and 50% of his celestial essence had been transformed into astral energy. When he used his spear, the spear's shadows that erupted turned from energy to astral light. The power behind them was terrifying. With every move he used, the air in front of him would surge. Sand and stones would fly into the air, and wind blades would tear through the air, emitting whistling sounds. Bang! In particular, the dark spirit spear arts was even more terrifying. With a thrust of Yixing's spear, the earth would shake and a layer of the ground would rise up for dozens of meters. Wherever the spear point pointed, a massive crater would appear from the impact of the terrifying strength. Only in this desolate and uninhabited place could Yixing completely let loose. When he practiced the dark spirit spear arts, he had to display his full strength. Only like this could he thoroughly comprehend the dark spirit spear arts and fuse it with the power of his mind, reaching the boundary of perfection. After practicing the dark spirit spear arts 10 times, Yixing began to gasp for breath. He switched to practicing the heavenly bat steps to adjust his physical strength and celestial essence consumption. The first day quickly passed. Yixing could feel that whether it was the dark spirit spear arts or the heavenly bat steps, he had increased his attainments in both. His comprehensions were becoming increasingly profound. The next day, Yixing continued to practice. When he used the dark spirit spear arts, the earth trembled and rumbling sounds filled his ears. The fourth level of heart force had an extraordinary effect on increasing one's martial arts attainments. By noon, Yixing's dark spirit spear arts had successfully broken through to the boundary of perfection. Moo! Yixing was overjoyed. At this time, the black-armored demon bull guarding the edge of the plains suddenly cried out. Chapter 350. The black-scaled demonic bull cried out in warning. Someone or a demonic beast was coming this way. Yixing looked towards the direction of the black-scaled demonic bull. After a short while, a demonic bird crossed a mountain ridge and appeared in Yixing's field of vision, arriving in the sky above the plains. Yixing looked into the distance and his face changed. His eyes suddenly shot out a beam of light. This demonic bird was a level 2 overlord demonic beast, red-tailed eagle, which was equivalent to a half-step enlightened master. What made Yixing's face change was not the red-tailed eagle, but a 2-star enlightened master standing on the back of the red-tailed eagle. In the depths of the Azure Cloud Mountain Range, in the heart of the demonic beast territory, it was a coincidence to see a human martial artist. What was even more coincidental was that Yixing recognized this 2-star enlightened master. 10 days ago, the Falling Star sect was attacked by several enlightened masters, and this person was one of them. Yixing remembered very clearly that he was together with the Flying Cloud sect's Yun Zhanfei. At that time, the enlightened masters and elders of the sect all transmitted the names of these enemies to Yixing. This person was the Flying Cloud sect's elder, Chou Buhong. Yixing never expected that in just 10 days, he would meet one of his enemies, Chou Buhong, in the depths of the Azure Cloud Mountain Range. After a trace of surprise, Yixing's eyes naturally flashed, revealing his killing intent. Chou Buhong rode the red-tailed eagle and quickly flew over. When he saw Yixing, his expression was also surprised, but then he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. In these 10 days, the Flying Cloud sect was pressured by the Sun-Moon sect, East Supporting sect, Blood Spectre sect, and Wind God sect to hand over Yun Zhanfei. Otherwise, the Flying Cloud sect would compensate Yun Zhanfei for the treasures he took from Yixing. On Yixing's body, there were 2 high-grade spirit weapons. One was suspected to be a high-grade flying spirit weapon, its value was at least equal to a top-grade spirit weapon. The Falling Star sect's sect master's ring was a middle-grade storage ring, its value was no less than a high-grade spirit weapon. The Flying Cloud sect couldn't afford it even if they lost all their property. Therefore, these days, the Flying Cloud sect was burning with anxiety, looking for Yun Zhanfei everywhere. At the same time, the other sects were also looking for Yun Zhanfei in the Qingyun region. However, there was no news of Yun Zhanfei. Therefore, they suspected that Yun Zhanfei was still hiding in the Qingyun mountain range. For this reason, the Flying Cloud sect dispatched many Taoist masters and elders to search the Azure Cloud mountain range. However, how vast was the Azure Cloud mountain range? Looking for a person inside was equivalent to looking for a needle in a haystack. Every Taoist master of the Flying Cloud sect was responsible for searching a very large area. Yixing's current location was within the area that Chou Buhong was in charge of searching. Today, Chou Buhong was searching not far away when he was attracted by the commotion caused by Yixing practicing the dark spirit spear arts. He flew over on a red-tailed eagle. However, instead of Yun Zhanfei, he saw Yixing. How could he not be shocked? Seeing Yixing, Chou Buhong instantly understood that the person who was burned to ashes should be Yun Zhanfei. Their previous judgment was completely wrong, ridiculously wrong. However, after the shock, Cho Bo-hong's mood quickly turned into pleasant surprise. Yixing didn't die. This meant that Yixing's treasures were still on Yixing's body. Furthermore, Yun Zhanfei's mid-grade flying spirit tool was also on Yixing's body. Looking at Yixing, Cho Bo-hong's eyes were filled with joy as if he was looking at a big treasure. Cho Bo-hong didn't want to share this big treasure with others. Therefore, when he saw Yixing, he was filled with pleasant surprise and didn't use the communication pearl to inform others. Like Yun Zhanfei, he wanted to take all the treasures on Yixing's body. 2 high-grade spirit weapons, a high-grade flying spirit tool, a mid-grade storage ring, and a mid-grade flying spirit tool. With these treasures, he could leave the Qingyun region and live a comfortable life in other places. He could even use these treasures to exchange for heavenly treasures that could increase his cultivation. Even if his potential was exhausted, he could still forcefully become a 3-star sage or even a 4-star sage. In the Star Land, strength represented status. If he became a 4-star sage, he would be a middle sage. How glorious would that be? As for whether he could kill Yixing, Yun Zhanfei didn't even consider it. Even if Yun Zhanfei died in Yixing's hands, Cho Bo-hong was still confident that he could kill Yixing. He was a 2-star sage, his strength was far from Yun Zhanfei's. Moreover, Cho Bo-hong didn't believe that Yixing killed Yun Zhanfei with his true strength. Yun Zhanfei must have underestimated his opponent. Moreover, Yixing must have used some kind of forbidden artifact or array disc that could threaten a sage's life. If Yixing killed Yun Zhanfei and used up those treasures, Cho Bo-hong didn't believe that Yixing would have more. Treasures that could kill a sage were extremely precious. Even Cho Bo-hong, a 2-star sage, didn't have them. Therefore, even if Yixing had more, it would only be by chance. It was impossible for him to have more than one. The red-tailed eagle stopped 1,000 meters away from Yixing. Cho Bo-hong stared at Yixing coldly. Yixing also stared back at him coldly. Both of their eyes were filled with cold killing intent. They both thought of each other as a dead man. Before his dark spirit spear art reached the transformation stage, Yixing was already fearless of a 2-star sage after using all his trump cards. Now that his dark spirit spear art had reached the transformation stage, its power was incomparable to the perfect stage. It was comparable to an upper stage spiritual martial art. As for a 2-star sage, it was extremely difficult to cultivate an upper stage spiritual martial art to the initial stage. Yixing believed that even if there was a gap in cultivation, he could make up for it with his martial attainment and comprehension of the heaven and earth. Even if he did not use his 2 trump cards, the Sagittarius constellation and the Black Hole constellation, Yixing had absolute confidence to fight against a 2-star sage. On the red-tailed eagle, Cho Bo-hong looked down at Yixing from above and said, "Kid, you are not dead. The person who was burned to ashes was Yun Zhanfei. You purposely tore your clothes and scattered them nearby so that we would think that you were dead. We would think that Yun Zhanfei had taken all your treasures and ran away. So that we would shift our attention to the dead Yun Zhanfei. Then, we would not be able to find Yun Zhanfei to prove it. Kid, you are so scheming." Yixing looked at Cho Bo-hong coldly and said, "Isn't this the result that you want? Why are you pretending to be dissatisfied?" He. Cho Bo-hong laughed and said, "That's right, this is the result that I want. Kid, you are a smart person. You know what the result will be if you fall into my hands. I will give you a chance to end it quickly so that I don't have to do it myself." Yixing laughed coldly and said, "I'll end it myself? Are you an idiot? Don't tell me that I can't beat you down from that damn bird. Then, I will slap your mouth and break your limbs. Finally, I will use my spiritual weapon to pierce your heart and make a big hole in your body. Or, I will also give you a chance to end it quickly so that I don't have to do it myself. You know what the result will be." Cho Bo-hong narrowed his eyes and the corners of his eyes twitched. Yixing was more unyielding than he had imagined. Although he knew that Yixing would not commit suicide because of his words, he would at least be afraid. However, he could not see the slightest trace of fear from Yixing. As a 2-star sage, he did not have the slightest bit of prestige in front of an 8-star martial saint. This made Chou Buhong very unhappy. At this time, with Yixing's astral energy locked down, Chou Buhong was unable to see through his specific cultivation. However, 10 days ago, Yixing had just broken through to 8-star martial saint. Chou Buhong naturally thought that Yixing was still an 8-star martial saint. He never imagined that Yixing had already used the star crystal spirit milk produced in the middle grade star crystal vein to rapidly increase his cultivation to a half-step true sage. Chapter 351. Medium grade spirit martial art, Gale Spear Art. Chou Buhong's Gale Spear Art had already reached perfection. This was a spirit martial art that emphasized speed. Moreover, Chou Buhong's comprehension of the potential of the wind was extremely profound. This increased the speed of the Gale Spear Art. With a thrust of his spear, the distance of 1,000 meters was like a ruler. Although Chou Buhong was confident in himself and looked down on Yixing in terms of strength, because Yun Zhanfei had died under Yixing's hands, Chou Buhong didn't relax his tactics. Instead, he remained vigilant, attaching great importance to this battle. In this spear strike, Chou Buhong had used at least 80% of his strength. Let alone a half-step true master, even a 1-star true master would be frightened out of their wits by this spear strike. But Yixing was not an ordinary half-step true master, nor was he someone a 1-star true master could compare with. In particular, speed. In this aspect, any early true master could forget about gaining an advantage in front of Yixing. Dark Spirit Spear Art. The black dragon spear in Yixing's hands moved. In an instant, a dark spear light shot out. He used the dark spirit spear art and thrust out his spear. Chou Buhong's spear was fast, but Yixing's spear was even faster. The two spirit spears were like two needles against each other, their spear points thrusting together. Bang! A terrifying astral collision emitted explosive sounds. In that instant, a mass of energy rapidly spread out in all directions. Yixing and Chou Buhong's bodies shook at the same time. They were sent flying back 100 meters by the impact of this energy before falling to the ground. Wang! The medium-grade spirit spear in Chou Buhong's hands buzzed and trembled. As for the black dragon spear in Yixing's hands, it remained motionless, completely silent. One was a medium-grade spirit spear and the other was a high-grade spirit spear. In a collision of equal strength, it was clear which was stronger and which was weaker. The black dragon spear had dissolved the impact of the collision. Yixing's arm hadn't been impacted by the other's strength. But, Chou Buhong's arm had been impacted by Yixing's spear, causing his arm to feel numb from the shock. Chou Buhong stared at Yixing. His eyes were filled with shock as he exclaimed, he said, "Half-step true master. This was impossible. You just broke through to 8-star martial sage 10 days ago. In just 10 days, how could you break through again and become a half-step martial sage?" Yixing's eyes were filled with intense killing intent as he said, "Impossible. Whether you believe it or not, the truth is the truth, just like your life. Even if you don't want to believe it, you can't change the fact that you will die today." Chou Buhong's eyes burned with anger as he shouted, "Hiding your cultivation, you must have hidden your cultivation before. No wonder you were able to kill Yun Zhanfei. It turns out that you are a half-step enlightened being, and your strength is not any weaker than a 1-star enlightened being. However, in front of me, Chou Buhong, your strength is not enough." Who instantly, Chou Buhong's aura surged. He circulated his astral energy to the limit, wanting to go all out against Yixing. Before this, Chou Buhong thought that 80% of his strength would be enough to kill Yixing. However, through the exchange just now, he had already tested out Yixing's strength. If he didn't go all out, there was no hope of killing Yixing. Facing Chou Buhong's surging aura, Yixing's expression was indifferent as he said, "A 2-star enlightened being is only a so-so. You are much weaker than I thought. Did you think that I went all out just now? I only used 60% of my strength to play with you." Yixing's aura also skyrocketed. The grand force of wind, the grand force of fire, and the grand force of darkness, the three grand forces of heaven and earth, caused Yixing's aura to be even stronger than Qiu Buhong's. Qiu Buhong's pupils shrank, revealing a trace of astonishment. A half-step enlightened being could actually release such a terrifying aura. This was simply more terrifying than most of the two-star enlightened beings he had met. At this moment, cracks began to appear in Qiu Buhong's confidence in winning. He regretted not notifying the other enlightened beings. If he were alone, it would be difficult for him to swallow up all the treasures on Yixing's body. Now, Qiu Buhong wanted to notify the others, but Yixing wouldn't give him the time. He shouted, "You also want to try my spear?" Dark Spirit Spear Art, Flash of Light. This spear was the Manifestation Realm Dark Spirit Spear Art. It had reached perfection. With the minute wind force added on, its speed reached the extreme. With the minute fire force and darkness force added on, its might was terrifying to the extreme. With a whoosh, a light flashed and the black dragon spear arrived in front of Qiu Buhong. Compared to Qiu Buhong's Gale Spear Art, this spear was much faster and much stronger. As this spear arrived, Qiu Buhong's heart tightened. A cold sweat dripped down his back as he felt a fatal threat. Qiu Buhong's figure was like a bolt of lightning. He drew backwards, the medium-grade spirit spear in his hands thrusting forwards. Bang, two spears collided. With a loud explosive sound, energy exploded outwards. Qiu Buhong's body shook and his retreating speed doubled as he shot backwards for over 1,000 meters. As for Yixing, he only paused for a moment. He didn't take half a step back. He used the heavenly bat steps and his figure flashed like a bolt of lightning. The black dragon spear erupted with a brilliant dark spear light once more as it thrust towards Qiu Buhong. Dark Spirit Spear. Yixing shouted out loud. He used the Dark Spirit Spear Art's ultimate killing move. The dark spear light shot forwards, occupying Qiu Buhong's entire field of vision. The Manifestation Realm Dark Spirit Spear Art contained the rhythm of the Tao. Its moves were like divinity, possessing an unfathomable might. Even if it was a one-star enlightened being whose cultivation was higher than Yixing's, in front of Yixing's spear, they still wouldn't have the strength to resist. They would instantly die. Qiu Buhong was a two-star enlightened being. Beneath this spear, he also felt an intense sense of death. However, the strength of a two-star enlightened being was far from what a one-star enlightened being could compare with. In front of this spear, a one-star enlightened being had no ability to resist. A two-star enlightened being. Qiu Buhong bit down on the tip of his tongue. The pain caused him to instantly awaken from the illusion of divinity. However, the black dragon spear was already close to his throat. Qiu Buhong didn't have time to use his spear skills to resist. He could only instinctively block with his spear. Clang! The black dragon spear's spear point ruthlessly struck the middle-grade spirit spear shaft, emitting a loud explosive sound. A terrifying strength instantly sent Qiu Buhong flying backwards. Qiu Buhong spat out a mouthful of blood as he shot backwards for over 1,000 meters. Whoosh! As Qiu Buhong was still retreating, a beam of starlight shot out from between his eyebrows, turning into a star surrounded by a hurricane. This was a wind attribute astral image. Its star force surged, and from its intensity, it could be considered a high-grade astral image. Qiu Buhong had used his astral image, but he didn't launch a counterattack against Yixing. Instead, he followed the strength of Yixing's spear and fled into the distance. Beneath the cover of the hurricane astral image's wind star force, Qiu Buhong's speed doubled. Astral wind turned into wings and he rapidly glided through the air. His speed was at least twice as fast as when he rode the red-tailed eagle. At the same time, Qiu Buhong took out the speed communication bead. Yixing's strength was far too formidable, causing him to be frightened out of his wits. As for Yixing's treasures, he no longer had the courage to take them all for himself. He had to notify the other enlightened beings so that they could besiege Yixing. How could Yixing give Qiu Buhong the chance to notify the others? His lips curled up and a pair of blue wings instantly sprouted from his back. These weren't wings condensed from astral essence, but a true flight-type spirit artifact. Moreover, they were a top-grade flight-type spirit artifact, the azure cloud wings. At this time, Yixing was striving to stop Qiu Buhong as quickly as possible. Naturally, he had to erupt with his maximum speed. With a flap of the azure cloud wings, Yixing instantly turned into a beam of light, vanishing from where he stood. Qiu Buhong's speed was fast enough, nearly reaching the speed of a third-level monster bird. But, compared to Yixing's speed when he used the azure cloud wings, he was far too slow. He was at least twice as slow. In the blink of an eye, Yixing crossed several miles and appeared behind Qiu Buhong. The black dragon spear in his hands emitted an intense dark spear light that ruthlessly stabbed towards Qiu Buhong's back. Qiu Buhong grasped the medium-grade spirit spear in one hand and the speed communication bead in the other. He had already activated the azure cloud stars to activate the speed communication bead. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt a bone-chilling chill from behind him. His heart trembled as he felt the aura of death. At this time, Qiu Buhong didn't have time to speak. He quickly looked behind him and his hair stood on end. He saw that Yixing's black dragon spear had already pierced towards his back. Qiu Buhong's astral essence erupted to the limit. His body was covered in a layer of flames and his astral essence was already burning. His speed erupted as he wanted to avoid this spear. But even so, Qiu Buhong's speed was still inferior to Yixing's spear. In that instant, an icy chill penetrated his heart. Qiu Buhong didn't feel any pain. But as he looked down, he saw that the spear point had pierced through his chest. Chapter 352. As Qiu Buhong saw the spear point in his chest, he realized that he had been pierced through by this spear. Because this spear was too fast, even though it pierced through Qiu Buhong's body, he didn't feel any pain. It was only at this moment that he saw the spear point pierce through his chest, dripping with blood. Only then did he feel the intense pain that came from his body. Qiu Buhong opened his mouth wide and cried out in fear. But, his throat wasn't able to emit any shrill sounds. All he could do was emit a hoarse roar. The black dragon spear had pierced through Qiu Buhong's heart. This was a fatal wound. Qiu Buhong's vitality rapidly faded away and he didn't even have the time to cry out. Blood gushed out from Qiu Buhong's mouth. In just several breaths of time, his head tilted to the side and he died. In the skies, Yixing's blue cloud wings spread open behind him. He calmly stood in the void, grasping the black dragon spear and thrusting forwards. The spear point pierced through Qiu Buhong's body, fixing his corpse in the air. Even as Qiu Buhong died, his eyes were filled with regret and unwillingness. When he fought Yixing, he didn't lower his guard because he underestimated Yixing. But, it couldn't be denied that he had underestimated Yixing far too much. It was because he underestimated Yixing that he thought Yixing was only a genius of the younger generation, someone who hadn't stepped into the sage realm yet. It was impossible for him to be a match for a 2-star sage like him. Thus, when he saw Yixing, he didn't notify anyone. Instead, he wanted to kill Yixing and take all the treasures for himself. Ultimately, this had led to his own death. In truth, Yun Zhanfei dying under Yixing's hands was a very bad omen. This should have caused Qiu Buhong to place more importance on Yixing and avoid a one-on-one battle with Yixing as much as possible. Unfortunately, Qiu Buhong was attracted by the treasures and wanted to take all of Yixing's treasures for himself. Thus, he made an irrational move and naturally had to bear serious consequences. Yixing put away the black dragon spear and Qiu Buhong's corpse fell from the skies. The black dragon spear shook and a cold light flashed on the spear point, leaving not a single drop of blood on it. When Yixing landed on the ground, he retracted his azure cloud wings and collected Qiu Buhong's storage ring and mid-grade spirit spear. With a wave of his hand, he burned Qiu Buhong into ashes with the star fire. Qiu Buhong, you're not the first, and you won't be the last. East Fu Sect, Flying Cloud Sect, Blood Spectre Sect, Divine Wind Sect, and sun moon sect. Just you wait. It won't be long before I uproot all of you. This is the price you have to pay for attacking my falling star sect. Seeing Cho Buhong turn into ashes, Yixing said coldly. In the distance, Cho Buhong's red-tailed eagle flapped its wings and flew away. Yixing took out the purple firmament bow and a purple gold arrow. With a single shot, the arrow cut through the void for several miles and instantly struck the red-tailed eagle's head, instantly killing it. Yixing waved his hand towards the distance. The third-level monster beast, the black-armored iron bull, quickly ran over to the red-tailed eagle's corpse and began to enjoy its meal. Yixing continued to practice his martial arts. The dark spirit spear art had already reached the manifestation boundary. What he needed to practice next was the heavenly bat steps and the 4 divisions arrow art. Wind potential had a great effect on the cultivation of the heavenly bat steps. In addition to the 4th level of heart force, it didn't take long for his attainments in the heavenly bat steps to reach the manifestation boundary. With the heavenly bat steps reaching transcendent perfection, Yixing was no longer constrained by the situation. Every step he took had a terrifying speed. Speed was his advantage to begin with, and now it had risen to another level. As for the 4 symbols arrow technique, because Yixing's heart force was closely related to the art of archery, it was a piece of cake for him to cultivate it. In less than 2 days, he had reached the transformative stage. When one's martial arts reached the manifestation boundary, they were no longer constrained by the moves. Each of their moves contained unpredictable power. Yixing's dark spirit spear art, heavenly bat steps, and 4 divisions arrow art had all reached the manifestation boundary. Compared to when he had just reached the half-step enlightened person, his strength was incomparable. After reaching the manifestation boundary of the 4 divisions arrow art, Yixing continued to practice the upper-tier spiritual martial art, Flame Dipper Fist. As an upper-tier spiritual martial art, the Flame Dipper Fist was much harder to practice than middle-tier spiritual martial arts such as the Dark Spirit Spear art. However, Yixing had the help of the Super Brain. His body had already formed the Star Dipper and he also had the 4th level of heart force. Thus, he was able to practice the Flame Dipper Fist very quickly. 3 days later, Yixing stopped practicing the Flame Dipper Fist. His attainment in the Flame Dipper Fist had far surpassed the small success stage. He was only 1 step away from the greater success stage. However, the greater success stage of the upper-tier spiritual martial art required too much of the Star Dipper. It was not that Yixing could not comprehend it, but his cultivation was too low. At the half-step enlightened person level, it was basically impossible for him to break through that last step. Thus, he could only give up for now. As long as Yixing's cultivation broke through to the Star Dipper realm, the greater success stage of the Flame Dipper Fist would follow naturally. Yixing sat on the ground and took out a big piece of frost python meat from his storage ring. He pierced it with a lower-tier spiritual sword. Then, he waved his hand and ignited the star fire on the ground. He placed the frost python meat on top of the star fire and started to roast it. In the past few days, Yixing had been practicing martial arts and eating the dry food he had brought with him. Today, after he had finished practicing all the martial arts, Yixing's appetite had been aroused. He was preparing to roast some frost python meat for a big meal to reward himself. Yixing's star fire was extremely tyrannical. The frost python meat could not come in contact with the star fire directly, or else it would be burned to ashes. It could only be roasted on top of the star fire and let the heat slowly roast it. Not long after, oil dripped from the frost python's meat, emitting an appetizing aroma. The frost python meat was a natural top-grade ingredient. It did not need any seasoning. When roasted, it was already an exceptional delicacy. Soon, the frost python meat was roasted until it was golden and shiny. The aroma assailed the nostrils. Yixing was already salivating when he smelled the aroma. Whoosh! Yixing waved his hand and put away the star fire. The frost python meat had been completely roasted. Looking at the roasted frost python meat, Yixing's eyes lit up. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and prepared to enjoy the delicious meal. Smells so good, good food. Yixing was about to eat when a voice suddenly came from behind him. It was mixed with the sound of someone sniffing. Yixing heard the voice and his hair stood on end. He turned his head and saw that a bearded man with long hair and a bare upper body had appeared behind him at some unknown time. This man looked like a barbarian. He had a strong body and was 2 meters tall. His 2 arms were like a normal person's thighs. His muscles bulged like dragons. His entire person was filled with a sense of wildness and power. Whoosh, Yixing instantly shot up. Like a flash of light, he rushed forward several hundred meters. This barbarian-like strong man had actually appeared behind Yixing without making a sound. This made Yixing's hair stand on end. The black armored iron bull didn't sound a warning. This meant that it didn't notice the barbarian's arrival. This barbaric man was able to evade the black armored iron bull's vigilance, and was even able to silently appear behind Yixing. If he didn't make a sound, Yixing wouldn't have been able to detect him. This caused Yixing to be extremely shocked and scared. What kind of cultivation did this barbaric man have? If this barbarian had wanted to harm him, he could have launched a sneak attack from behind and killed Yixing in an instant. Yixing turned around and looked at the barbarian from afar. He asked, "Who are you?" The barbarian cracked a smile. "Ha! You don't have to be afraid. I don't have any evil intentions. If I did, you would have been dead before you could even sense my presence." The barbarian spread his hands, indicating that he was talking about something big. Even so, Yixing was still scared. He used his super brain to scan the barbarian, but he couldn't detect his cultivation. The barbarian saw that Yixing was very vigilant. He said, "I was cultivating in seclusion in the dark canyon, comprehending the power of darkness. I smelled the fragrance of your barbecue. Ha! It's too fragrant. My favorite thing in this life is delicious food. Although I only smelled the fragrance, I can guarantee that the barbecue in your hand must be a peerless delicacy." After saying that, the barbarian realized that he hadn't answered Yixing's question. He said, "I'm He. He Biao. You can call me He Biao. I want to eat the peerless delicacy in your hand. Of course, I won't eat it for free. I'll use my collection of peerless wine to exchange with you. How about it?" He Biao raised his hand and a dark green bottle appeared in his hand. It was about 3 inches tall. Yixing looked at the dark green bottle and thought, how much wine can such a small bottle hold? He Biao saw Yixing's expression and said, "Don't look down on my wine bottle. Hee, even if it's a house full of wine, it can still hold it all. I'm about to leave the Qingyun region and expand the map to the entire True Xian domain. The 9 great sects and the sects in other regions have a lot of new settings and new characters. Then, I have to use the plot to connect these new settings, sects, and characters. It's very troublesome and I'm stuck in a very miserable situation. Moreover, some readers said that the plot isn't good recently. This made me even more flustered. I don't know what to write next. Sweat. Yesterday and today, I've been thinking hard about the plot for the next 2 days. Now, I've finally straightened it out a little. How is it going? When it's done, please verify it. I'll update 1 chapter today. I won't use the previous chapters to make up for the missing chapters. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Adding chapters is adding chapters. Making up for the missing chapters is making up for the missing chapters. Thank you brothers for your support. Your support is the motivation for me to work hard. Thank you. Chapter 353. Yixing was shocked. The green wine bottle in He Biao's hand was actually a spatial treasure. Storage rings were the most common type of spatial treasure. The only spatial treasure Yixing had ever seen was a storage ring. However, the storage ring's space was not big. A low-grade storage ring's space was only 1 meter in length, width, and height. It could not store many things. A mid-grade storage ring was 100 times more precious than a low-grade storage ring. Its space was also 100 times larger. It was about 5 meters in length, width, and height. It could store a large room's worth of things. He Biao said that the green wine bottle in his hand could store a room's worth of wine. A room must have more than one room. The space was probably bigger than a mid-grade storage ring. It was very extraordinary. Of course, Yixing's super brain could not detect He Biao's cultivation. This was enough to prove that he was not an ordinary person. It was normal for him to have extraordinary treasures on him. During the grand tournament of the 10 sets, Yixing was able to scan the cultivation base of the 4-5 celestial enlightened masters of the northern 4 sects. It was obvious that He Biao's cultivation base was higher than the northern 4 sect leaders. According to Yixing's inference, He Biao was at least a high-level enlightened master. He could be called an esteemed master. In the entire True Xian domain, an esteemed master stood at the pinnacle of the martial arts world. Of course, an esteemed master was Yixing's lowest estimation of He Biao. He Biao's cultivation should only be higher. He might even be a venerable. However, Yixing obviously did not believe that this savage He Biao in front of him was a venerable. Not to mention in the Qingyun region, even in the entire True Xian domain, venerables were legends. Yixing did not believe that he would meet a venerable in the Qingyun mountain range. He Biao did not have any malice towards Yixing. This made Yixing feel relieved. His expression changed from panic to calmness. Yixing tossed the roasted frost python meat over to He Biao and said, "There's no need for Senior to exchange wine for this frost python meat. If Senior insists on exchanging, then why don't you tell me where Dark Gorge is? I want to comprehend the force of darkness as well." Yixing heard an important point from He Biao's words. He Biao said that he comprehended the darkness force in the Dark Canyon. Yixing's grand force of wind and grand force of fire had long since stepped into the initial stage of force, the advanced stage. This was especially true for the grand momentum of wind, which was already quite a distance away from the realm of intricacy. Only Yixing's dark force was still at the first level of force, which was still a bit away from the subtle realm. If Yixing could comprehend the dark force to the minute subtlety realm, then the dark spirit spear art, as a dark martial art, would definitely have a huge increase in power. Yixing's strength would also increase by another level. Yixing was not someone who liked wine. He naturally wanted to comprehend the power of darkness more than coveting the fine wine in He Biao's hands. He Biao took the frost python meat and put it in front of his nose to smell it, revealing a look of enjoyment. After sniffing a few times, He Biao revealed a very satisfied expression and said, "Good meat, ha! Exceptional meat." While talking, He Biao took out a dagger. With a swoosh, he cut the frost python meat into 2 halves. He Biao threw half of it to Yixing and said, "I'll bring you to the Dark Canyon. I'll also give you the fine wine to drink. One person happy is not as good as 2 people happy. Come, let's drink fine wine while eating good meat." Yixing took a step forward. Several hundred meters were like a square foot. He arrived in front of He Biao in one step and said, "Deference is no substitute for obedience." "Many thanks, Senior." Sigh. He Biao. I'm called He Biao. Within the 4 seas, all are brothers. Meeting is fate. Don't call me Senior, Senior. Let's drink wine together and eat meat together. We're brothers. Just call me He Biao. He Biao was clearly someone who did not care about status and seniority. Otherwise, in the martial arts world, based on cultivation and seniority, he was at least a high-level true master. In front of Yixing, he could totally be considered a senior. While talking, He Biao took out a large container. It was a wine cup as white as jade. There were dragons and phoenixes carved on the wine cup. It looked very noble. The white jade wine cup was more than 4 inches tall. It was more than an inch taller than the dark green wine bottle. However, He Biao picked up the dark green wine bottle and poured it into the wine cup, filling it to the brim. It could be seen that the dark green wine bottle was indeed a spatial treasure. The space inside was much larger than the size of the bottle. He Biao handed the wine cup filled with fine wine to Yixing and said, "Come, come, come. This is my collection of exceptional wine, drunken immortal wine. It was brewed by a master winemaker over 100 years. Good meat must be accompanied by good wine. Come. What's your name? Let's drink. I'm Yixing." "Many thanks, brother He Biao." Yixing took the wine cup. As an earthling, he did not have a strong sense of hierarchy. Since He Biao did not consider himself as a senior, Yixing naturally would not insist on being a junior and treat him as an equal. When one was outside, one should eat less of other people's food and drink less of other people's wine. Yixing had been in the Star Continent for almost 2 years. He naturally knew this. However, he took the wine cup from He Biao and did not hesitate. Instead, he directly drank a mouthful of wine. With He Biao's strength, if he wanted to harm Yixing, he did not need to use underhanded methods like poisoning the wine. He could just do it directly. Yixing would not be able to resist at all. Therefore, Yixing did not have any suspicions. He drank the wine in a free and easy manner. As the wine entered his mouth, it slid down his stomach. Yixing's heart was immediately filled with an extremely comfortable feeling. His mind shook, and in an instant, Yixing's perception suddenly increased by a large level. He could clearly sense the movement of the wind, the movement of the grass, and the movement of the insects around him. Yixing had only experienced this feeling in the dark world because of the black hole astrology. But now, just by drinking a mouthful of wine, he actually reached such a state. It could be seen that the wine he drank was indeed extraordinary. Yixing let out a long breath and praised, "Good wine. This wine actually has such an effect. It's much more precious than my frost python meat." The frost python meat was only delicious. In terms of benefits, it could not be compared to the zui xian, or wine. Although the frost python meat was a priceless treasure, this was only relative to foodies who focused on taste. To the vast majority of cultivators, the zui xian wine had such a miraculous effect and was much more precious than the frost python meat. Even though Yixing was also a foodie who liked good food and paid attention to taste, he also thought that the zui xian or wine was more precious than the frost python meat. He Biao also drank a mouthful of the zui xian or wine and then ate a big mouthful of the frost python meat. His eyes suddenly lit up. That feeling was as if his soul had been upgraded. After swallowing the frost python meat, He Biao's expression was still in a state of excitement. After a while, he said, "Good meat, it's really good meat. I, He Biao, have never eaten such good meat in my life, haha." "Yixing, you're wrong, very wrong. Although the zui xian wine is good, compared to this meat, it's a far cry, haha." For He Biao, although the zui xian wine was precious, he had a lot of it and had drunk a lot of it. It no longer had the effect of increasing his perception like the first time he drank it. Therefore, although the zui xian wine was good, in He Biao's eyes, it was just a good wine that he could drink at any time. But the frost python meat was different. The first time he ate it, the feeling of eating it was almost like his soul had been upgraded. It was refreshing to the extreme. For a foodie who paid attention to taste, this was simply a priceless treasure. He Biao was a foodie who paid attention to taste. The frost python meat to Yixing was like the zui xian or wine to He Biao. It was something that could be eaten at any time. Therefore, they naturally felt that the other's food was better. Yixing drank the zui xian or wine while eating the frost python meat. He also felt as if his soul had been upgraded. Compared to just eating the frost python meat, it was indeed much more delicious. Moreover, with He Biao accompanying them, the two of them drank and ate while chatting. They felt incomparably happy, and it was much more refreshing than when they were eating alone. Just as He Biao said, it was better to have two people happy than one person happy. Yixing swallowed a piece of frost python meat and drank a mouthful of the zui xian, or wine. Then, he burped loudly and said, "Brother He Biao, are you from the 9 great sects?" According to Yixing's knowledge, only the 9 great sects of the true Xian domain had high-level star realm masters. 9 great sects? Oh. You mean the 9 great sects of the true Xian domain? He Biao, who was eating the frost python meat, was stunned. He immediately reacted and shook his head, "I'm not from the true Xian domain. My sect is the Dark Star sect. It's located in a very distant place. Today, my wife went to the hospital for a checkup. I only have time to write at night, so I can only maintain 2 chapters. The missing chapter will be filled tomorrow. The Heavenly Arrow God will also welcome its first ban. My brain is getting worse and worse. A few days ago, I decided to go to the hospital today. I had already forgotten about it last night. I sleep late, usually after midnight. I also wake up late in the morning. Today, my wife woke me up at 7 in the morning. I don't even know why I woke up so early. Damn, I was scolded. Thank you brothers for your support. I saw your comments in the book review section. Also, thank you rich readers for your support. In the last few days of this month, I will work hard to explode. Chapter 354. The Dark Star sect was definitely famous in the Star Continent. It was a superpower that could rival the Great Yuan dynasty. However, the Qingyun region was too small compared to the entire Star Continent. Not many people knew about the Dark Star sect even though it was the ruler of the Star Continent. The number of people who knew about it was even fewer. If it was some perfected masters who had ventured outside, they might know about the Dark Star sect. However, Yixing didn't know much about the Star Continent. He didn't even know about the Great Yuan dynasty, so how could he know about the Dark Star sect? Therefore, when Yixing heard about the Dark Star sect, his expression was normal. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well, without any ripples. Yixing drank a mouthful of zui xian, wine and said, "Since the Dark Star sect is very far from here, why did Brother He Biao come to the Qingyun mountain range to cultivate?" I was in the Qingyun region, but I didn't know about the Dark Canyon in the Qingyun mountain range to participate in the Dark Force. He Biao swallowed a piece of frost python meat and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, the Qingyun mountain range and the Dark Star sect are quite close. The founder of the Dark Star sect once walked out of here and later founded the Dark Star sect." Yixing's expression froze, and he said, "Your esteemed cult's founding ancestor must be an extremely powerful figure, right? Has there ever been such a strong person in the Azure Cloud mountain range? When did this happen?" He Biao was at least a perfected master. In Yixing's opinion, the sect he came from was at least at the same level as the 9 great sects of the true Xian region, or even higher. The founders of the 9 great sects were at least peak perfected masters, or even legendary honorables. Therefore, it could be inferred that the founder of the Dark Star sect was at least at this level. The Qingyun mountain range was desolate and uninhabited. However, 1,500 years ago, there was a superior one-star sect in the Qingyun mountain range. Yixing couldn't help but wonder if the founder of the Qingyun mountain range was an expert who walked out of the Qingyun mountain range and founded the Dark Star sect. He Biao said, "The founder of our Dark Star sect is naturally powerful. About 2,000 years ago, our founder walked out of the Green Cloud mountain range. However, he did not stay in the Green Cloud mountain range. Instead, he traveled the world. 100 years later, he established the Dark Star sect. 2,000 years ago, the Azure Cloud sect still existed." Yixing was even more certain that the founder of the Dark Star sect was an expert from the Azure Cloud sect. However, what he did not expect was that the Dark Star sect was a power that could rival the Great Yuan dynasty. It was a 3-star power, far from what the Blue Cloud sect, a 1-star power, could compare with. A powerhouse from the Blue Cloud sect could establish a 3-star sect. This wasn't completely impossible. If this expert was a king-grade genius, after walking out of the Emerald Cloud sect, he would travel the world and eventually become a king who stood at the peak of the entire star continent. It would be reasonable for him to establish a 3-star sect. However, this was only a theoretical possibility. For a king-grade genius to appear in a 1-star sect, not to mention 10,000 years, it would be hard to come by even in 100,000 years. Moreover, if an expert from the Emerald Cloud sect stepped onto the peak of the star continent, became a king of a generation, and established a 3-star sect, then the Emerald Cloud sect, as the place where he came from, would definitely benefit from it. With the help of a king-grade genius and a 3-star sect, the Emerald Cloud sect could easily become a 2-star sect. However, 1500 years ago, when the Emerald Cloud sect was destroyed, it was still a 1-star sect. This did not make sense. If Yixing knew how powerful the Dark Star sect was, he would definitely deduce that the founder of the Dark Star sect did not come from the Emerald Cloud sect. However, he now thought that the Dark Star sect was a power on the same level as the Emerald Cloud sect. Yixing did not get to the bottom of the matter. He believed that the relationship between the Emerald Cloud sect and the Dark Star sect was not shallow. Mentioning the destroyed Emerald Cloud sect was obviously impolite. Yixing did not continue to ask He Biao, but He Biao asked Yixing, "Which sect are you from?" At such a young age, you have the cultivation of a half-step perfected person. Even in the entire star continent, you are considered pretty good. In the true Xian domain, you should be a first-rate genius. Yixing's heart trembled. Those who had seen the world were indeed different. He was not even 18 years old and was already a half-step perfected person. This had already far surpassed the younger generation of the Emerald Cloud sect. Even in the entire true Xian domain, there were very few who could be compared to him in the younger generation. Even if they could beat him, they would definitely be over 20 years old. At his age, there was probably no genius in the true Xian domain who could reach the cultivation of a half-step perfected person. However, according to He Biao, among the geniuses in the entire star continent, Yixing was only considered pretty good. Of course, He Biao was only talking about cultivation. He was not clear about Yixing's strength. In terms of strength, to be able to kill a 2-star perfected person before the age of 18, he was also a first-rate genius in the entire star continent. I am a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Sigh. When Yixing mentioned his face suddenly revealed a disappointed expression. He then told He Biao about how the Falling Star sect had been annihilated by the other sections. He Biao sighed and said, "Whether it is a sect or an individual warrior, it is a cycle of life and death. When there is life, there is death. No matter how powerful a warrior or a sect is, there will be a day when it will be annihilated. The world of warriors is so cruel. In order to survive in this world, we can only follow the rules of this world. If someone kills your family, you will kill him. If a sect destroys your sect, you will destroy that sect. Yixing, we will drink wine and eat meat together. We are brothers. If you have any difficulties, I can help you. However, you have to take back your dignity. You have to avenge your hatred." Yixing nodded and said, "Of course. Brother He Biao, I have already drunk your wine. If you take me to the Dark Canyon, it will be the greatest help to me. In 2 months, the Young Hero Assembly will be held. The reward for first place will be something I need. I have to increase my strength as much as possible to participate in the Young Hero Assembly." He Biao was puzzled. You are indeed a top genius in the true Xian domain. However, you are still too young. It is not easy to get first place in the Young Hero Assembly. I wish you good luck. After drinking the wine and eating the meat, He Biao stood up and clapped his hands. "Come with me to the Dark Canyon. I hope you can gain something." The Dark Canyon was only a few dozen miles away from the place where Yixing practiced martial arts. Yixing followed He Biao and soon arrived at the Dark Canyon. This was a canyon that was about 1,000 meters long and dozens of meters wide. Although it was daytime, the canyon was dim and it was difficult to see the bottom. Perhaps this was where the name of the Dark Canyon came from. Yixing scanned with his super brain and saw through the darkness of the canyon. He saw the bottom of the canyon, which was about 100 meters deep. The power of darkness in the dark canyon is very strong and of a very high level. How much you can comprehend will depend on your perception. You drank the drunken immortal wine for the first time. It should have a great effect on your perception and perception. Before the effect of the wine wears off, it is the best time to comprehend the power of heaven and earth. He Biao stood beside the dark canyon and said to Yixing. Then, he jumped into the dark canyon. He Biao's voice came from the bottom of the canyon, I am going into seclusion to comprehend. Don't disturb me. You can leave whenever you want. He Biao was attracted by the fragrance of the frost python meat. His heart itched and he stopped comprehending. All his previous efforts were wasted. Now that he was full, he was ready to go into seclusion to comprehend. He hoped to comprehend the power of darkness to perfection as soon as possible. Yixing also entered the dark canyon. He sat cross-legged and sensed the aura of darkness around him. With He Biao beside him, Yixing did not use the black hole astrology. Instead, he relied on his own perception to comprehend. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3 breaths, soon, more than 10 breaths passed. Yixing could not sense the slightest bit of the power of darkness. It was as if this was an ordinary canyon. If He Biao had not brought him here, Yixing would not have known that this was a suitable place to comprehend the power of darkness. However, because of He Biao's example, even if Yixing could not sense the power of darkness, he continued to calm his mind and focus on comprehending the aura around him. Time ticked by. An hour had passed, but Yixing still hadn't sensed the power of darkness. However, Yixing's heart was as calm as still water. He continued to sense it. Since He Biao could comprehend the power of darkness here, there must be something. After nearly 2 hours, Yixing finally gained something. Chapter 355. When Yixing sensed the darkness around him, he felt as if he had entered a world of darkness. Everything around him was pitch black. He couldn't even see his fingers if he stretched them out. This scene was similar to Yixing using the black hole astrology. However, the world of darkness created by the black hole astrology was like Yixing's sense of touch. Yixing could clearly sense everything within a radius of 10 miles in this world of darkness. But now, the world of darkness was like a prison. It sealed off Yixing's vision and senses. Yixing couldn't see or sense anything in the darkness around him. What a terrifying darkness! Yixing was startled. He immediately understood that the reason he couldn't sense the darkness wasn't because there wasn't any in the canyon, but because the darkness in the canyon was too high level. With Yixing's level of comprehension of the darkness, it was very difficult to sense it. In the clear sky area, Yixing's understanding of the force of darkness was absolutely one of the best. Even he found it difficult to sense the force of darkness in the dark canyon. Naturally, other martial artists, even Dao masters of the older generation, wouldn't be able to sense it. Therefore, the martial artists in the clear sky region didn't know that there was a dark canyon in the clear sky mountain range where one could comprehend the darkness. Perhaps someone had come to this canyon before, but to the martial artists in the clear sky region, this was just an ordinary canyon. No one would care about it. Yixing was overjoyed. With his perception, as long as he comprehended the darkness, it was impossible for him to gain nothing. The darkness in the canyon was so high level. It was very likely that he would be able to comprehend the darkness to the minute subtlety realm here. As time passed, Yixing's senses slowly seeped into the surrounding darkness. Yixing's understanding of the dark force had reached an extremely profound level in the first stage. He was not far away from the second stage, which was the hyperfocus realm. This would be of great help to him in comprehending the dark force in the dark canyon. Time passed day by day. Yixing's comprehension of the dark force in the dark canyon increased day by day. Compared to the speed of martial arts cultivation, Yixing's comprehension of the dark force was extremely slow. However, The comprehension of the grand momentum of heaven and earth obviously could not be discussed together with the cultivation of martial arts. The difficulty of the two was on a completely different level. Many true masters below the 7th level of the astral realm could train their upper-class spiritual martial force to the great completion. However, very few could comprehend the heavenly force to the subtle realm. Especially for a special heavenly force like the dark force, it was even more difficult to comprehend. Compared to Yixing's cultivation, Yixing's comprehension of the dark force could be described as advancing at a tremendous pace. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, as Yixing's understanding of the force of darkness grew deeper and deeper, Yixing's sensing range in the surrounding world of darkness grew wider and wider. 10 days later, he could sense 5 meters away. 20 days later, he could sense 10 meters away. 25 days later. Yixing's comprehension of the force of darkness finally showed a qualitative improvement. His mind moved, and his entire body emitted a strong qi of darkness. His force of darkness had broken through the small completion and entered the subtle realm. Yixing's sensing range in the surrounding world of darkness suddenly increased and extended to 30 meters away. Within 30 meters, the darkness was like Yixing's sense of touch. It was clearly sensed by Yixing. In the middle of the canyon, He Biao was surprised when he sensed the qi of darkness emitted by Yixing. The force of darkness has reached the subtle realm. Good kid, he is only a half-step true master, but he can comprehend the force of darkness to this extent. He is even more monstrous than I expected. Yixing's comprehension of the force of darkness was beyond He Biao's expectations. He Biao thought to himself, even in the Dark Star sect, there are only a handful of geniuses who can comprehend the force of darkness to the subtle realm when they are only half-step true masters. Such a monstrous genius is actually hidden in a small place like the Qingyun region. I wonder how strong he is and what his potential is. Could he be a true dragon? He Biao opened his eyes and his eyes lit up. Originally, he wasn't interested in the true Xian region's young hero assembly. However, because of Yixing, he was interested. It's still early. I will go and take a look when the young hero assembly begins. He Biao thought to himself and closed his eyes again. He continued to comprehend the force of darkness. His force of darkness was only one step away from perfection. However, this last step was extremely difficult to cross. With my cultivation, the force of darkness has already reached the subtle realm. It is extremely difficult to improve it further. There is only a month left before the young hero assembly. I should be on my way. Yixing thought to himself. He did not disturb He Biao and left the dark canyon. From the black armored iron bull's consciousness, Yixing found out about the nearby territories of some powerful demonic beasts. About 1,000 miles away, there was a demonic beast equivalent to the 3-star venerable, the silver-winged demonic condor. The silver-winged demonic condor was the descendant of the golden-winged demonic condor king. It was a rank 3 demonic beast. After reaching adulthood, most of the demonic beasts would become early rank 3 demonic beasts. Only a few of them could grow into mid-rank 3 demonic beasts. If its wings turned golden, it would become a golden-winged demonic condor. It could grow into a high-rank 3 demonic beast, equivalent to a high-rank star venerable. As for the golden-winged demonic condor king, it was a rank 4 demonic beast, equivalent to a human honorable. If it was a mid-rank 3 silver-winged demonic condor, Yixing would not dare to provoke it. However, this silver-winged demonic condor was an early rank 3 demonic beast. Its strength was equivalent to the 3-star venerable. Under the attack of Yixing's eye of clear cloud, it naturally could not withstand it. In just a few dozen breaths of time, it was completely subdued by Yixing riding on the silver-winged demonic condor. Yixing ordered it to fly towards the star crystal vein. The silver-winged demonic condor's flying speed was slightly faster than the purple flame monarch condor. The distance of several thousand miles was covered in less than half a day. Yixing did not enter the star crystal vein. Instead, he observed from afar. Seeing that the star crystal vein was still in the hands of thee, he was relieved. He rode on the silver-winged demonic condor and flew towards the north. That was the direction of the Nine Sect Alliance's headquarters, Nine Heavens City. On the way, Yixing inquired about the news when he passed by a city. More than a month after the 10-sect Grand Tournament ended, the Clear Sky region had undergone great changes. First, it was the Falling Star sect that was destroyed. This was something that Yixing naturally knew. However, half a month after the Falling Star sect was destroyed, the Spirit Moon sect also suffered a calamity. They were annihilated in a single night, and it was said that there were only a few survivors. The martial artist who annihilated the Spirit Moon sect left behind 4 large words on the mountain gate of the Spirit Moon sect: Dayuan Invincible, Demon Star Must Die. It was said that the annihilation of the Spirit Moon sect was related to the strongest force in the entire star mainland, the Dayuan dynasty. The reason seemed to be related to the Virgo constellation that appeared briefly in the Spirit Moon sect. This was the first time that Yixing heard news about the Dayuan dynasty. At the same time, he also remembered the Dayuan dynasty in his heart. This was because the Virgo constellation martial artist that the Dayuan dynasty was looking for, Yixing knew that it was none other than Wei Qingxian. Sage Yan Yu had told Yixing that Wei Qingxian had caused a great commotion when she broke through to the martial saint realm and awakened her Virgo constellation. She was then taken away by a king on the grounds of safety. It seemed that the king had already predicted this outcome. The Spirit Moon sect would not be able to protect the peerless genius Wei Qingxian. Why would the Dayuan dynasty want to kill Wei Qingxian? It was shrouded by a formation, and other than the 9 high sects martial artists, no one else was allowed to fly in the sky. The outer city surrounded the inner city, and the area was much larger. More than 90% of the city's population was in the outer city area, and it was divided into 4 districts: north, south, east, and west. The eastern district was a super big market. There were businesses owned by the various sects of the true mystic domain. There were weapon pavilions, elixir pavilions, array pavilions, and other shops that sold weapons, elixir pavilions, array discs, as well as all kinds of material stores. There were also various markets such as auctions, caged battle arenas, slave markets, and so on. The South District was a place of accommodation and entertainment. There were inns, hotels, restaurants, tea houses, brothels, and other buildings everywhere. The west side of the city was where some of the local sects and sects of the 9 Heavens City were stationed. Needless to say, there were some small sects, and many of them were 1-star sects. The stronger ones were even comparable to 1-star sects. The North District was the slums. Some of the 9 Heavens City's local residents and wandering martial artists lived in this district. It was a mix of good and bad people. Yixing rode on the silver-winged demon eagle and flew directly into the South District. At the center of the South District, there was a 7-story inn that was dozens of meters tall. Yixing looked at the entrance of the inn. 7 Treasures Inn. Outside the 7 Treasures Inn, there were a few waiters, and all of them were martial sages. In the Fallen Star Kingdom, martial sages were legends to ordinary martial artists. In most of the cities, there were no martial sages. Even in the county cities, there were very few martial sages. Most of them were ordinary martial artists, and there were even some who had not stepped into the martial Dao. However, in the 9 Heavens City, everyone that Yixing saw was at least a Star Vortex Realm martial artist, and all of them were martial sages. In the 9 Heavens City, Star Vortex Realm martial artists were called Star Marquis, and martial sages were the names given to Star Vortex Realm martial artists in the remote Qingyun region. Young hero, do you want to stay or have a meal? This inn provides first-class accommodation and food service. We also have professional demonic beast caregivers to take care of your pet beast. Seeing Yixing and the silver-winged demon eagle walking up, one of the waiters outside the 7 Treasures Inn walked out and welcomed Yixing. At this time, there were other martial artists who came to the 7 Treasures Inn, and the other waiters also went up to welcome them. If it was in the Fallen Star Kingdom, martial sages would be scared half to death if they saw a grade 3 demonic beast. Chapter 357. Yixing found out that the 9 sect alliances had gathered the younger generation of the true Xian region for the Young Hero Assembly because of the Great Yuan dynasty's order. Through the discussions of the crowd, Yixing also gained a rough understanding of the Star Continent. The Star Continent was extremely vast. Just the land area alone was hard to describe. It was more than 100 million miles. Moreover, the Star Continent wasn't an entire continent. It was a collective name for the 5 continents, separated by a vast ocean. The 5 continents were called the Middle Sky Continent, East Divine Continent, South Divine Continent, West He Divine Continent, North Tranquil Continent. Among them, the Middle Sky Continent was the largest. Its area was comparable to the other 4 continents combined. It was the most powerful region in the Star Continent. The ruler of the Star Continent, the Great Yuan dynasty, was located in the Middle Sky Continent. The Great Yuan dynasty occupied half of the Middle Sky Continent. Its area was larger than any of the other 4 continents combined. As for the other half of the Middle Sky Continent, it was the territory of the 12 affiliated empires of the Great Yuan dynasty. These 12 affiliated empires were all upper-rank empires. Any one of them could dominate a region in the other 4 continents. Compared to the Middle Sky Continent, the East Divine Continent was much smaller and more fragmented. Unlike the Middle Sky Continent, which only had 1 dynasty and 12 empires, it was divided into 108 regions and countless countries. The East Divine Continent was divided into 36 major regions and 72 minor regions. Regions with 2-star sects were called major regions. Regions with 1-star sects were called minor regions. The true Xian region was one of the 72 lower regions. Within the region, there were no 2-star sects with honorable realm experts. As for the other 3 regions, no one talked about them in detail. Yixing estimated that the situation was similar to the East Divine Continent. A year ago, Yang Gang from the Tiangang sect was the only one on the Earth Profound ranking. He was a 3-star spiritual master, and he was ranked first on the Earth Profound ranking. This year, Meng Ji and Bai Tsang, who were ranked 2nd and 3rd on the Earth Profound ranking, had also broken through to the 3rd level of the Star Realm. I wonder if Yang Gang will be able to keep his first place on the Earth Profound ranking after the Young Hero Assembly. The Boundless Sects Meng Ji and the White Bone Gates Bai Tsang are both disciples of the 9 great sects. After breaking through to the 3rd star Enlightened Master Realm, their strength must have improved greatly. However, Yang Gang is also a disciple of the 9 great sects. He reached the 3rd star Enlightened Master Realm a year earlier than the 2 of them. Keeping the first place on the Earth Profound ranking shouldn't be a problem. Currently, there are only 3 3-star Enlightened Masters on the Earth Profound ranking. Yang Gang, Meng Ji, and Bai Tsang's top 3 positions should be unshakable. However, many new Enlightened Masters have risen this year. I'm afraid that the top 10 positions of the Earth Profound ranking will change quite a bit. In my opinion, the one with the biggest change should be the Earth Fiend sect's genius disciple, Shi Wenxie. He was originally ranked 10th on the Earth Profound ranking. Although the Earth Fiend sect is not one of the 9 superior sects, it is still a first-rate force in the 9 heaven city other than the 9 sect alliances. When Shi Wenxie was a 1-star Enlightened Master, he was already invincible among his peers. He even defeated a 2-star Enlightened Master once. Furthermore, his ranking on the Earth Profound ranking even surpassed the Golden Sword sect's 2-star Enlightened Master disciple, Mu Ziyue. I heard that Shi Wenxie's cultivation has already broken through to the 2nd level of the astral realm and became a 2-star Enlightened Master. Hee. I wonder how many 2-star Enlightened Masters from the 9 great sects are his match. Is this true? Shi Wenxie broke through to the 2-star Enlightened Master realm? It should be true. Then that's terrifying. Shi Wenxie's battle strength is heaven-defying. I'm afraid that there are very few Enlightened Masters who are his match. I estimate that Shi Wenxie will very likely rush to the 4th place on the Earth Profound ranking. Over the years, the top 10 of the Earth Profound ranking has always been occupied by the disciples of the 9 great sects. The other sects rarely have a genius who can enter the top 10 of the Earth Profound ranking in the past 100 years. When Shi Wenxie was a 1-star enlightened master, he was already able to enter the 10th place on the Earth Profound ranking. This is already very impressive. If he rushes to the 4th place, TSK. This should break the record of the Earth Profound ranking in the past 1,000 years. Actually, other than Shi Wenxie, there's another person who is also very frightening. His ability to challenge those of a higher level is even greater than Shi Wenxie's. Furthermore, he's extremely young, not even 20 years old. He. I know who you're talking about. Is it the genius disciple of the Golden Sword sect, Mu Xiaoyue? Yes, it's Mu Xiaoyue. He's not even 19 years old, but he's already half a step into the enlightened master realm. Furthermore, his sword arts have reached perfection. He's comprehended the grand force of metal to the minute realm. He has defeated many 1-star enlightened masters and is known as the #1 genius of the true Xian region in the past 1,000 years. His reputation as a genius is even above Shi Wenxie's. His battle prowess is indeed more heaven-defying than Shi Wenxie's. If Mu Xiaoyue breaks through the astral realm and becomes a 1-star enlightened master, with his battle prowess, he might be able to defeat a 2-star enlightened master. That's a sure thing. Furthermore, I've received news that Mu Xiaoyue has already broken through the astral realm and become a 1-star enlightened master. His ranking on the Earth Profound ranking should skyrocket and rush into the top 10. He might even trample the few 2-star enlightened masters on the Earth Profound ranking under his feet. TSK. A 19-year-old 1-star enlightened master. Looks like Mu Xiaoyue will shine in this young hero assembly. I wonder if he can defeat Shui Yan of the Fire Cloud sect when he's still a 1-star enlightened master. Shui Yan's cultivation is at the peak of the 2nd level of the astral realm and he's ranked 4th on the Earth Profound ranking. Mu Xiaoyue has just broken through to the 1-star enlightened master, while Shui Yan is at the peak of the 2nd level of the astral realm. He's not far from breaking through to the 3-star enlightened master. Shui Yan is the strongest among the younger generation of the 2-star enlightened masters. Mu Xiaoyue's chances of defeating him are not high. If Mu Xiaoyue can really defeat Shui Yan, then he can compete with Shi Wenxie for the new 4th place on the Earth Profound ranking. Yixing focused his astral energy into his ears. While he was pondering, he not only heard the reason why the young hero assembly was being held, but he also heard the news of many young geniuses in the true Xian domain. Currently, among the young geniuses in the true Xian domain, the 3-star enlightened masters, Yang Gang, Meng Zhi, and Bai Cang, were the strongest. They occupied the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd places on the Earth Profound ranking. Furthermore, Yang Gang was in the Big Dipper sect, Meng Zhi was in the Boundless sect, and Bai Cang was in the White Bone sect. They were the 3 strongest sects in the true Xian domain's 9 high sects. However, the cultivators in the inn were not talking about Yang Gang, Meng Zhi, and Bai Cang. Instead, they were talking about Shi Wenxie and Mu Xiaoyue, the 2 geniuses who could fight above their level. Shi Wenxie was a disciple of the Earth Fiends sect. Although the Earth Fiends sect was not one of the 9 high sects, it was a top 1-star medium sect. It was a local force in the 9 heavens city. In the true Xian domain, other than the 9 high sects, the Earth Fiends sect's strength could be said to be one of the best. Although they were both 1-star medium sects, the Azure Cloud region's 4 northern sects, the Tian Luo sect and the Dark Nether sect did not even have a 6-star enlightened master. The Sun Moon sect and the Blue Thunder sect only had 1 6-star enlightened master each. As for the Earth Fiends sect, they had as many as 3 6-star enlightened masters. The Earth Fiends sect's strength was stronger than the 4 1-star medium sects of the Azure Cloud region combined. Shi Wenxie was invincible in the astral realm. He even had the battle record of challenging someone above his level. The sect behind him was also very powerful. Naturally, he was very famous. Moreover, his cultivation had broken through to the 2nd level of the astral realm this year. During the Young Hero Assembly, there would probably be many 2-star enlightened masters who were ranked higher than him on the Earth Profound ranking. Naturally, he would be the talk of the town. However, the most talked about person was not Shi Wenxie, but Mu Xiaoyue of the Golden Sword sect. As the saying went, there was always someone better than you. There was no better genius, only the most talented. Mu Xiaoyue was a monstrous genius of the younger generation who was even more talented than Shi Wenxie. He was known as the #1 genius of the true Xian domain in the past 1,000 years. Before the age of 19, Mu Xiaoyue had already become a half-step enlightened master and had defeated many 1-star enlightened masters. A half-step enlightened master defeating a 1-star enlightened master. This kind of battle record was even more shocking than Shi Wenxie's. Moreover, Mu Xiaoyue was 19 years old and had already broken through to the astral realm to become a 1-star enlightened master. Shi Wenxie had only broken through to the 1-star enlightened master when he was 20 years old. He was now 22.5 years old and had only reached the 2-star enlightened master realm. In terms of cultivation, Shi Wenxie was superior to Mu Xiaoyue because of his age. If they were in the same age group, Shi Wenxie would be inferior. As a result, Mu Xiaoyue naturally became the hot topic of the Young Hero Assembly. This Young Hero Assembly was related to the change of the Earth Profound ranking. All the warriors of the true Xian domain wanted to know how Mu Xiaoyue, the #1 genius of the true Xian domain in the past 1,000 years, would shine in the Young Hero Assembly. Chapter 358. Apart from Yang Gang, Meng Ji, and Bai Cang, who stood in the top 3 of the Earth Profound ranking, as well as Shi Wendian and Mu Xiaoyue, who had heaven-defying battle prowess, Yixing had more or less heard some news about the other young geniuses. Yixing already knew a lot about the geniuses at the top of the Earth Profound ranking. There was no need to talk about the top 3. Shui Yan, ranked 4th on the Earth Profound ranking, a 2-star enlightened master, a disciple of the Fire Cloud sect, one of the 9 great sects. Nan Xinyue, 5th on the Earth Profound ranking, a 2-star enlightened master, and a disciple of the Flying Rainbow sect, one of the 9 high sects. Du Feiyun, ranked 6th on the Earth Profound ranking, a 2-star spiritual master, and a disciple of the Flowing Wind sect, one of the 9 great sects. Shi Du, ranked 7th on the Earth Profound ranking, a 2-star spiritual master, and a disciple of the Spirit Snake sect, one of the 9 great sects. Mu Xiaoyue was one of the most dazzling geniuses of the younger generation. All of the martial artists on the second floor of the inn gradually shifted the topic of discussion to Mu Xiaoyue. There were endless debates about whether Mu Xiaoyue could defeat Shui Yan, who was currently ranked 4th on the Earth Profound ranking. Shui Yan is definitely no match for Mu Xiaoyue. A youth with a sword on his back fiercely slammed his fist on the table. His expression was somewhat excited as he said, Mu Xiaoyue is a monstrous genius of the true Xian region that hasn't appeared in 1,000 years. His swordsmanship has reached perfection. Now that his cultivation has broken through to the astral realm, who among the 2-star enlightened masters can match him? How could Shui Yan have the qualifications to be his opponent? If the two of them were to fight, Mu Xiaoyue would definitely be able to defeat him with a single strike. Mu Xiaoyue was a sword Dao powerhouse, and so was this young man with a sword on his back. It was obvious that he worshipped Mu Xiaoyue very much. When he heard some people say that Mu Xiaoyue was inferior to Shui Yan, he became excited. The Fire Cloud sect was ranked 4th among the 9 high sections. It was only inferior to the Heavenly Dipper sect, Boundless sect, and White Bone sect. As a genius disciple of the Fire Cloud sect, Shui Yan naturally had no lack of warriors fawning over him. The sword-bearing youth had said that Mu Xiaoyue could defeat Shui Yan with a single sword strike, which made many people dissatisfied. A middle-aged man at the first level of the astral realm said, "What does a brat know? He only knows blind worship." Mu Xiaoyue is indeed powerful. When he breaks through to the astral realm, he can defeat many 2-stars enlightened masters. However, young Master Shui Yan is only 1 step away from breaking through to the 3rd-star enlightened master. He is the strongest 2 stars enlightened master. Mu Xiaoyue is definitely not a match for young Master Shui Yan. This middle-aged man was a rogue cultivator who did not belong to any sect. He had worked as a waiter in the Nine Heavens city and received benefits from the Fire Cloud sect. Later on, he broke through to the astral realm and became a perfected person by chance. He then became a guest elder of a small sect in the Nine Heavens city. Among the martial sages in the Nine Heavens city, he could be considered a legendary figure. There were many ordinary people in the Nine Heavens city who didn't belong to any sect. They relied on their own efforts and luck to make a name for themselves. Some of them became high-level star marquises, some became half-step enlightened masters, and some even became enlightened masters with a lifespan of 200 years. Countless ordinary martial sages in the Nine Heavens city treated the achievements of these rogue enlightened masters as their lifelong goal. However, although this one-star enlightened master was a legendary figure among the rogue martial sages in the Nine Heavens city, he was nothing compared to the cultivators in the world of sections. The Fire Cloud sect and the Golden Sword sect were existences that he looked up to. However, he had received benefits from the Fire Cloud sect in the past, so his words naturally sided with the Fire Cloud sect. At the same time, he did not smear Mu Xiaoyue's name. He was sure that Mu Xiaoyue was a genius, but he did not think that Mu Xiaoyue could defeat Shui Yan. That's right. Shui Yan is at the peak of the second level of the astral realm. Although Mu Xiaoyue is powerful, he has just broken through to the astral realm. He shouldn't be a match for Shui Yan. On the second floor of the inn, many cultivators were saying this. They believed that Mu Xiaoyue was powerful, but they did not believe that Mu Xiaoyue was so powerful that he could defeat Shui Yan. When his idol was questioned, the young man became even more agitated. His face turned red. The young man stood up and said loudly, "I saw with my own eyes that Mu Xiaoyue defeated a two-star enlightened master when he was a half-step enlightened master. Now that Mu Xiaoyue has broken through to the astral realm, even Shi Xiangxie is no match for Mu Xiaoyue, let alone Shui Yan. This is getting more and more ridiculous. A half-step enlightened master defeated a two-star enlightened master, ha! Young man, you must be joking. You mean that Mu Xiaoyue has broken through to the astral realm and can fight with a three-star enlightened master? What nonsense! Young man, you're way too stupid. You're daydreaming right now." The young man's words did not gain the approval of the cultivators. Many of them roared with laughter. There were even some martial artists who had remained neutral in the debate between Mu Xiaoyue and Shui Yan, but at this moment, all of them were laughing at the sword-bearing youth. A half-step enlightened master defeated a two-star enlightened master. What a joke! None of the cultivators believed the young man's words. They all thought that he was bragging. But there was one exception. Yixing's eyes lit up as he looked at the young man. Others might not believe that a half-step enlightened master could defeat a two-star enlightened master, but he did. If what the young man said was true, then Mu Xiaoyue's strength should be much stronger than what everyone thought. If a half-step enlightened master could defeat a two-star enlightened master, then it was entirely possible for a one-star enlightened master to defeat a three-star enlightened master after breaking through to the astral realm. In Yixing's heart, Mu Xiaoyue was an opponent on the same level as Yang Gang, Meng Zhi, and Bai Cang. In this young hero assembly, Yixing's goal was to obtain the resurrection elixir as the reward for first place. Naturally, he wanted to compete with the strongest young geniuses in the true Xian domain. Yixing knew very well which of the younger generation were the most powerful geniuses in the true Xian region. Who is boasting shamelessly and insulting my senior brother Shui Yan? Just as the cultivators were mocking the young man, a woman's voice came from the stairs. Following the voice was a scorching aura. The voice was extremely angry. All the cultivators on the second floor of the inn looked towards the stairs. If the person addressed Shui Yan as senior brother, then she was definitely a disciple of the Fire Cloud sect. A disciple of one of the 9 high sects that could travel outside was no ordinary person. Some of the cultivators glanced at the young man. The person who came was a disciple of the Fire Cloud sect. With an angry voice, the young man was probably going to suffer. Dong! 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 Footsteps were heard. A few seconds later, two beautiful women walked up to the second floor. The eyes of the cultivators on the second floor lit up. The woman walking in front was wearing a fiery red short skirt. She looked to be in her early 20s, and her two slender white legs were exposed. The woman behind her was wearing tight black clothes with a few black spiders embroidered on it. She looked to be a few years older, but her figure was even hotter. The exquisite curves of her body were perfectly outlined, especially the clothes that covered her chest. There was a palm-sized tear in it, and her towering breasts pushed the tear open, revealing two snow-white hemispheres. The two beautiful women were at the first level of the astral realm. The woman in the short skirt in front had a terrifying aura that emitted a scorching aura. The person who spoke was obviously her. It's her, the other genius disciple of the Fire Cloud sect, Yen Lin. She is ranked 13th on the Earth Profound ranking and is also an incredible genius. She is also one of the participants of this young hero assembly. In the inn, someone recognized the woman in the fiery red short skirt and exclaimed softly. As for the woman in black with her chest exposed, more people recognized her, the Black Widow of the Earth Fiend sect. She is a vicious woman. Although she is over 25 years old and has stepped down from the Earth Profound ranking, she was once ranked in the top 20 of the Earth Profound ranking. The Fire Cloud sect disciple, Yen Lin, glanced sharply at the cultivators on the second floor and said, "Who is the one who insulted my senior brother Shui Yen? Stand out." All the cultivators looked at the young man with a sword on his back. Some were gloating, and some were sighing. The young man with a sword on his back walked out and said, "I was the one who said it, but I did not insult Shui Yen. I was telling the truth. When Mu Xiaoyue was a half-step enlightened being, he really defeated a 2-star enlightened being. I saw it with my own eyes. Shui Yen, he really is not Mu Xiaoyue's opponent." The young man with a sword on his back stuttered. His forehead was covered in sweat. Obviously, under the pressure of Yen Lin's powerful aura, the young man with a sword on his back was nervous. Yen Lin stared at the young man with a sword on his back. She squinted her eyes and revealed a terrifying aura. "Where are you from? Which sect?" His arms suddenly emitted a burst of black gas. The Black Widow was indifferent to the screams of the swordsman. She still had a smile on her face and said, "Scream louder, scream louder. If your voice satisfies me, I will let you go." Looking at the screaming youth with a sword on his back and the smiling Black Widow, all the warriors on the second floor felt a chill in their hearts. Many martial artists shuddered, not daring to look again as their hearts trembled. Killing someone is nothing more than a nod of the head. He only said a few words that made you unhappy. Moreover, it might not have been a lie. The punishment you gave him should be enough. Yixing said as he saw the youth with the sword on his back scream miserably and a black gas appear on his face. He couldn't stand it any longer. Many martial artists looked at Yixing. If he dared to speak out at this time, wouldn't he be inviting trouble? Some martial artists secretly praised him for his courage, and some martial artists coldly snorted, calling him an idiot. The Black Widow looked at Yixing with a smile and said, "Yo. It's a handsome young man. Do you also want me to dote on you?" As her voice fell, the Black Widow flung her hand and the youth with the sword on his back flew in front of Yixing. Bang! The table in front of Yixing was smashed into pieces by the youth with the sword on his back. Wine and dishes spilled all over the floor. Whoosh! A sword light flashed. The arm of the youth with the sword on his back was instantly cut off from his shoulder. Yixing didn't support the youth with the sword on his back. Instead, he took out a spirit weapon treasure sword and instantly slashed out. The arm of the youth with the sword on his back had already turned a deep purplish black. He had been deeply poisoned. Even the body of the youth with the sword on his back had turned black. His entire body began to emit a black gas. His eyes had turned white and he wasn't far from death. Yixing immediately took out a detoxification spirit pill and fed it to the youth with the sword on his back. The youth with the sword on his back had been poisoned in his arm. The Black Widow's poison was extremely potent. If the arm wasn't cut off, Yixing's detoxification spirit pill wouldn't have been able to cure the poison in the youth's body. However, with the arm cut off, the source of the poison was gone. Yixing's detoxification spirit pill immediately showed its effect. The black gas on the youth's face dissipated and his condition improved at a speed visible to the naked eye. The smile on the Black Widow's face disappeared and was replaced by a cold intent. Her eyes were like the eyes of a venomous snake as she stared at Yixing. "You dare to save someone that I, the Black Widow, want to kill?" The Black Widow's voice was bone-chilling and revealed a murderous intent. Yixing was still different from the martial artists of the Star Continent. Among the martial artists present, some were gloating and wouldn't save the youth with the sword on his back. Although some were lamenting in their hearts, they didn't dare to save the youth with the sword on his back. In short, they didn't save him. However, Yixing had to speak up when he saw someone he couldn't stand. When he saw someone on the verge of death, he had to save them. This was his personality as a human from Earth. If he chose to be weak and numb because of that little bit of fear in his heart, this wasn't Yixing's personality. On Earth, Yixing had lived an upright life. On the Star Continent, he was going to live an upright life. Yixing ignored the Black Widow and didn't even look at her. Instead, he sealed a few of the youth's acupoints to speed up his body's absorption of the detoxification elixir and increase the speed of detoxification. "Kid, I'm talking to you." The Black Widow's tone was still cold. "Thank you. You have to be careful." The youth with the sword on his back regained consciousness and said to Yixing. Yixing nodded at the youth with the sword on his back and stood up. He looked at the Black Widow and said, "Who do you think you are?" "I, your father, save people if I want to. Do I need your approval?" The Black Widow wanted to kill the youth with the sword just because he said something that made the two women unhappy. One could imagine how vicious her heart was. Yixing had already angered her by saving the youth with the sword on his back. Even if he apologized to them like the youth with the sword on his back, the Black Widow wouldn't spare him. The result would be the same as the youth with the sword on his back. He would be scratched by the Black Widow's poisonous claws and poisoned to death. Since that was the case, why would Yixing have to wrong himself and beg for mercy from her? Naturally, he would do as he wished. Whatever he wanted to say, he would say it without any scruples. However, Yixing's words gave the martial artists on the second floor a fright. Although the martial artists couldn't see his cultivation, they could see that he was only 17 or 18 years old. At such an age, how much cultivation could he have? Daring to speak to the Black Widow like that was simply courting death. The Black Widow's eyes revealed a cold light. Her face revealed a demonic smile as she stared at Yixing and said, "You dare to speak to sister like that? Do you want to die?" The more she smiled, the more dangerous it became. Her lips began to turn purplish black and her nails began to change color and grow longer. Yixing coldly looked at the Black Widow and said, "If I apologize to you, will you let it go?" The Black Widow said, "You wish." Yixing laughed and glanced at the youth with the sword on his back and said, "Then that's it. Your reaction won't stop here. My end will be his end. Why should I be polite to you, you vicious slut?" When the crowd heard Yixing's words, they carefully thought about it and realized that it made sense. Not to mention apologizing, even if he begged for mercy, the Black Widow might not spare him. Then, he might as well be unyielding and curse at her. However, the logic was easy to understand. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have dared to follow Yixing's example. In their hearts, they still hoped that begging for mercy would allow them to be forgiven. If they were unyielding, they would definitely die. "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." The Black Widow's lips had completely turned purplish black and her nails had become purplish black and long. They emitted a black aura and were clearly poisonous. As her voice fell, the Black Widow threw herself at Yixing. Whoosh, Yixing's figure flashed. In an instant, he was as fast as a phantom and the Black Widow threw herself at empty air. Pa! At this moment, there was a crisp sound. Yixing didn't seem to have left at all and appeared at his original spot. As for the Black Widow, a blood-red handprint appeared on her face as she was sent flying by Yixing's slap. Catch up. I'm finally done catching up. I'll start tomorrow. Seeking recommendation tickets. Chapter 360. 7 Treasures Inn, 2nd floor. The Black Widow was sent flying by Yixing's slap, crashing into the tables and chairs on the floor. All the martial artists quickly retreated. At this moment, the 2nd floor was dead silent. All the cultivators looked at Yixing in horror. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. They were shocked at Yixing's guts. He actually dared to slap an Earth Fiend sect disciple in Nine Heaven City. They were in disbelief because they couldn't believe Yixing's strength. He looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old, even younger than the youth with the sword on his back. He was actually able to send a 1-star enlightened master, Black Widow, flying with a slap. When Yixing made his move, his aura was exposed. Only then did the martial artists see Yixing's cultivation, half-step enlightened master. This made the martial artists even more shocked. A 17 or 18-year-old half-step enlightened master sent a 1-star enlightened master flying with a slap. This was simply another Mu Xiaoyue. Furthermore, Yixing had used a sword to cut off the youth's arm. This made them mistakenly think that he was Mu Xiaoyue. But when they thought about it, they realized that he wasn't. Mu Xiaoyue had already broken through the astral realm and became an enlightened master, while Yixing was only a half-step enlightened master. Furthermore, Yixing was obviously younger than Mu Xiaoyue. Mu Xiaoyue was already 19 years old, while Yixing was still a month away from turning 18. You dare to hit me? You dare to hit me? The Black Widow, who was sent flying, climbed up and touched her burning face as she screamed. At the same time, Yan Lin, who came with her, also released a terrifying aura that locked onto Yixing. In terms of looks, Yan Lin, who was wearing a fiery red short skirt that revealed her slender white legs, was even prettier than the Black Widow. However, Yixing didn't even look at her. She was the same as the Black Widow, both of them had the heart of a snake and scorpion. For this kind of woman, even if she stood naked in front of him, Yixing wouldn't even look at her. At most, he would spit on her. Yixing looked at the shrieking Black Widow and said, "That's right. You wanted to kill me, so how could I dare to hit you? I must have been too nervous just now, so my hands and feet didn't listen to me. Come, try again. Let's see if I still dare to hit you." As he spoke, Yixing hooked his finger at Black Widow. Yixing's mocking words made the martial artist smile involuntarily. Whether it was his hands or his mouth, this young man was merciless. The Black Widow looked at Yixing furiously. Her snow-white breasts heaved up and down violently. However, she did not have the courage to continue attacking Yixing. "You will pay the price." Black Widow's face twisted as she cursed Yixing. Yan Lin walked towards Yixing and said, "Brat, how dare you? What's your name? Where are you from? Which sect are you from?" Yixing looked at Yan Lin and said, "It's none of your business." Yan Lin's face turned green as she asked, "Do you know who I am?" Yixing said, "I don't know, and I'm not interested to know." Yan Lin snorted and said, "My name is Yan Lin, a disciple of the Fire Cloud sect. I'm 22 years old, and I'm at the peak of the first level of the astral realm. I'm ranked 13th on the Earth Profound ranking. The top 10 of the Earth Profound ranking were all enlightened masters at the second level of the astral realm. Yan Lin was ranked 13th on the Earth Profound ranking, which meant that her strength was definitely at the top among the 1-star enlightened masters. Even if she wasn't at the peak of the first level of the astral realm, her strength was still first-rate among the 1-star enlightened masters. Although the Black Widow was once in the top 20 of the Earth Profound ranking, she was only ranked 19th at the highest. Yan Lin was only 22 years old. She still had 2 years to rush up to the Earth Profound ranking. When she became a 2-star Enlightened Master, she would even rush into the top 10 of the Earth Profound ranking. Compared to her, the Black Widow was not on the same level. Yan Lin reported her identity, cultivation, and ranking on the Earth Profound ranking, which shocked all the martial artists present. After all, not many martial artists knew Yan Lin. Most of them had only heard of Yan Lin's reputation. The true Xian domain was very vast, and there were many martial artists. Very few had seen Yan Lin before. The Fire Cloud cult was one of the 9 great sects. As a disciple of one of the 9 great sects, Yan Lin was also ranked 13th on the Earth Profound ranking. She was an elite among the younger generation of the true Xian domain. When the martial artists found out about her identity, how could they not be shocked? However, Yixing was indifferent towards Yan Lin's identity. Not to mention Yan Lin, even a 2-star Enlightened Master on the Earth Profound ranking would find it hard to enter Yixing's eyes. The only ones that could be valued by Yixing were the 3 3-star Enlightened Masters and Mu Xiaoyue. In addition, Shi Wenxie could also be considered half of them. Yixing looked at Yan Lin with a normal expression and said, 22 years old, and a 1-star Enlightened Master. You're only ranked 13th on the Earth Profound ranking. What is there to be proud of? Is it that great? If these words came out of someone else's mouth, it might be arrogant. However, when it came out of Yixing's mouth, no one felt that it was inappropriate. A 17 or 18-year-old half-step Enlightened Master had sent a 1-star Enlightened Master flying with a slap. This kind of genius was not inferior to Mu Xiaoyue. Mu Xiaoyue was known as the most monstrous genius in the true Xian domain in the past 1,000 years. Yixing was not inferior to Mu Xiaoyue, so naturally, it was the same. Then, Yan Lin, who was ranked 13th on the Earth Profound ranking, was not worth mentioning in front of Yixing. The other martial artists thought so, but not Yan Lin. Yixing's words made her furious. Yan Lin shouted, even Mu Xiaoyue did not dare to speak to me like this when he was a half-step Enlightened Master. If you want to be arrogant in front of me, you should at least wait until you become a Star Realm Enlightened Master. Now, you have to kneel. Whoosh! As she spoke, Yan Lin's entire body emitted a layer of illusory flames. A scorching gust of wind instantly blew. Yan Lin's palm struck towards Yixing upper-grade martial art, Raging Flame Palm. Yan Lin's palm struck out. The flaming star energy condensed into a flaming palm print. In an instant, it arrived in front of Yixing. She used her full strength and showed no mercy. The space on the second floor of the inn was limited. Yan Lin's full-strength attack arrived in an instant, making it difficult for Yixing to display his speed. Yixing used his speed to send the Black Widow flying with a slap. This was an unexpected effect. Yan Lin came prepared. Yixing naturally would not use the same trick. He did not want to dodge, so he immediately used the Flaming Star Fist. Get out of my way. At the same time Yixing punched out, he shouted. The Flaming Star Fist instantly collided with the Flaming Star Palm. Boom! With a loud explosion, the flame astral stars splashed in all directions, and the hot airflow instantly surged in all directions. In an instant, it densely covered the entire second floor of the inn. Everyone felt a wave of hot airflow, and their complexions changed. Along with the scorching air wave, Yan Lin's body was also dispersed. Her strength was not on the same level as Yixing's. She was sent flying by Yixing's punch. Yan Lin flew dozens of meters and crashed into the wall on the other side. She also fell to the ground. In the Seven Treasures Inn, there were martial artists coming in and out. Fighting was a relatively common occurrence. Therefore, the inn was built extremely sturdy. The walls were reinforced with formations and were not damaged by Yan Lin. Puff! Yan Lin fell to the ground and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. In just one move, she was injured by Yixing. The martial artists looked at Yixing with incomparable shock. Yan Lin was a one-star perfected person, but she was injured by Yixing in one move. This strength was too unbelievable. Even when Mu Xiaoyue was a half-step perfected person, he had defeated many one-star perfected person. However, in the circulating battle records, there was no record of him defeating a one-star perfected person in one move. Yan Lin's strength was at least first class among the one-star perfected person. If Yixing could defeat her in one move, wouldn't he be able to contend with a two-star perfected person? A half-step perfected person contending with a two-star perfected person. If they did not see it with their own eyes, the martial artists present would not even dare to think about it. None of the martial artists present knew Yixing regarding Yixing's identity. Everyone was extremely curious. Some people secretly guessed, he's so young and has the cultivation of a half-step perfected person. His strength is also so terrifying. I don't even know Yan Lin and the Black Widow. He shouldn't be a disciple of the 9 upper sects. Could he be a genius disciple of a two-star sect? Although there were no two-star sects in the true Xian territory and there were very few genius disciples of two-star sects here, this seemed to be the only explanation. If one were to say that a one-star sect or an inferior one-star sect in a certain area, there would be a monstrous genius that was even more powerful than Mu Xiaoyue, none of the martial artists present would believe it. Yan Lin crawled up, and there was a hint of suspicion in her eyes. She also had some doubts about Yixing's identity. It seemed that she had to investigate it thoroughly. Let's go. Yan Lin gave the Black Widow a look. The two of them did not dare to stay and quickly left. Chapter 361. Oh my God. A half-step enlightened being defeated Yan Lin, who is ranked 13th on the Earth Profound list, in one move. This battle power is too heaven-defying. Even Mu Xiaoyue couldn't defeat Yan Lin in one move when he was a half-step enlightened being. Even defeating Yan Lin would be difficult. Do you guys think he's a disciple of some sect in the true Xian domain? If so, then the number one genius of the true Xian domain in the past 1,000 years might not be Mu Xiaoyue. Definitely not. Mu Xiaoyue's parents are both high-level astral realm esteemed beings. Moreover, his ancestors have been esteemed beings for several generations. He has an excellent bloodline inheritance, an 8-star yellow fate, and an extremely strong martial talent. This is why he is the number one genius of the true Xian domain in the past 1,000 years. Other than the 9 great sects, how could any other sect have such a heaven-defying genius? Then, he should be a genius disciple of some 2-star sect. No wonder he didn't put Yan Lin and the Black Widow in his eyes. Yeah. A 2-star sect is extremely powerful. With supremacies in charge, even the 9 superior sects combined would not be able to compete with a 2-star sect. The Earth Fiends sect is even weaker. If he is from a 2-star sect, the ones who would be in trouble would be Yan Lin and Black Widow. He's so young and has the cultivation of a half-step enlightened being. He also has such terrifying battle power. I'm afraid he's very outstanding in a 2-star sect. Could he be a disciple of a honorable? Hiss. A disciple of a honorable. That's too scary. If a honorable is angry, he can easily destroy a 1-star sect. The martial artists discussed animatedly. They didn't believe that an ordinary sect in the true Xian domain could produce a genius that was even better than Mu Xiaoyue. They all thought that Yixing was a genius disciple from a 2-star sect. A 2-star sect had an honorable. It was on a completely different level from a 1-star sect. Moreover, the difference between the two was much greater than the difference in strength between the 2-star sects. With the strength of an honorable, it was easy to destroy a 1-star sect. It was like an enlightened being destroying a martial saint's force. Thinking of this, all the martial artists looked at Yixing, their gazes filled with awe. Yixing glanced at the warriors on the second floor indifferently. All the warriors were startled. They were so scared that they immediately looked away, not daring to look at Yixing again. Even the astral realm sages were no exception. Yixing turned around and walked towards the young swordsman. How are you? The sword-bearing youth immediately bowed to Yixing to express his gratitude and said, Yixing thanks young master for saving my life. I'm fine now, but... Looking at the broken arm beside him, Jian Wushuang sighed. His arm was crippled. Unless he could find a spirit pill that could regenerate broken limbs in the future, he would be left with only one arm for the rest of his life. Yixing glanced at Jian Wukong's empty right arm and said, It seems like you only know how to use the sword with your right hand. Jian Wushuang nodded and said, Without my right arm, my sword skills are crippled. However, I won't give up. Without my right arm, I can still practice the sword with my left hand. I will definitely take revenge for what happened today. Yixing said, The Earth Fiends sect is not to be trifled with. You should avoid them for now and leave Nine Heavens City first. Jian Wushuang nodded and said, I'm here to participate in the Young Hero Assembly. With my right arm crippled, I no longer have the strength to participate. I will leave now. May I know young master's name and where you are from? Jian Wushuang will remember today's kindness and will definitely repay it in the future. Yixing smiled and said, My name is Yixing. I come from a very distant place. You don't need to know. If you want to repay me, we'll talk about it when we meet again in the future. You can leave now. Since others mistakenly thought that he was a disciple of a two-star sect, Yixing would naturally use this identity to shock the Fire Cloud cult and the Earth Fiend sect. Naturally, he wouldn't expose his origins to avoid being harassed by the Fire Cloud cult and the Earth Fiend sect. Young Master Yi, what I said is true. When Mu Xiaoyue was a half-step sage, he really defeated a two-star sage. Moreover, he was a late-stage two-star sage. Mu Xiaoyue's strength is much stronger than the rumors say. Jian Wushuang transmitted his voice to Yixing with celestial essence. He then bowed slightly again and said, Young Master Yi, farewell. After Jian Wushuang left, Yixing also left the second floor of the inn and went to room 707 on the 7th floor. He would be staying there for a month. As for the broken tables and chairs on the second floor, the inn could only blame it on their bad luck. They wouldn't ask Yixing for them, nor would they dare to go to the Fire Cloud cult and the Earth Fiend sect to ask Yan Lin and the Black Widow for them. Compared to the profits of the 7 Treasures Inn, the value of those tables and chairs was not worth mentioning. There was no need to ask for them. After Yixing left, the inn quickly arranged for the coachman to take away the broken tables and chairs. The floor was cleaned up and replaced with new tables and chairs. The guests who came later could only learn from the discussions of other cultivators that such a violent incident had happened here. Yan Lin and the Black Widow couldn't find out Yixing's identity for the time being. Both of them were afraid of Yixing and didn't dare to cause trouble for him for the time being. Yixing stayed at the 7 Treasures Inn leisurely. The next day, Yixing left the inn and went to the bookstore to buy some books. They were all books that introduced the geography of the Star Continent. They mainly introduced the Middle Sky Continent and the East Divine Continent. Most importantly, they introduced the True Xian region. Yixing's reading speed was very fast. After flipping through the pages, he scanned them all into his super brain. Yixing finally had a certain understanding of the Star Continent. The realms of cultivators were divided into the Star Tempering Realm, Star Vortex Realm, Star Dipper Realm, Astral Reaching Realm, and Star Sea Realm. They were called ordinary cultivators, Star Marquis, Sage, Venerable, and King. Among them, high-level Star Marquis was called King Marquis, high-level Sage was called Sage, and high-level Venerable was called Lord. There was no introduction to high-level kings. There were no high-level kings in the Star Continent. The strongest were only mid-level kings, and there was only one in thousands of years. The founder of the Great Yuan dynasty was a mid-level king at the 4th level of the Star Vortex realm. He was also a 4-star king. Since the establishment of the Great Yuan dynasty 10,000 years ago, only 4 4-star kings had appeared. They were the founder, one appeared 8,000 years ago, one appeared 2,000 years ago, and one appeared 300 years ago. The 4-star king that appeared 300 years ago was the current supreme king of the Great Yuan dynasty. His surname was Meng, and his name was Tai. Every time the supreme king of the Great Yuan dynasty became a 4-star king, the Great Yuan dynasty would enter a golden age, and geniuses would appear in large numbers. Currently, the Great Yuan dynasty was in a golden age. Venerables were as common as clouds, and even kings were numerous. Even sages were everywhere. Comparing the 9 sect alliances of the true Xian region to the Great Yuan dynasty was like comparing the Purple Mountain County to the 9 Heaven City. The strongest in the Purple Mountain County were martial saints, and there weren't many of them. However, the 9 Heaven City was filled with martial saints. The strongest in the 9 sect alliances were sages, and the Great Yuan dynasty was filled with sages. Because the Spirit Moon sect had been destroyed by the Great Yuan dynasty, Yixing didn't have a good impression of the Great Yuan dynasty. However, when Yixing understood the strength of the Great Yuan dynasty, he couldn't help but be shocked by the strength of the Great Yuan dynasty. After reading the books, Yixing also had a better understanding of the East Divine Continent. The 72 lower regions were divided into many different countries. However, each of the 36 upper regions had a country. They were all 2-star empires, and each 2-star empire had a 2-star sect behind them. Among the 36 2-star empires, there were 3 upper-rank empires, 9 middle-rank empires, and 24 lower-rank empires. Yixing was most concerned about the news of the true Xian region. Originally, he didn't even know about the 9 great sects of the true Xian region, but now, he finally knew. The 9 great sects were Big Dipper sect, Boundless sect, White Bone sect, Fire Cloud sect, Spiritual Snake sect, Red Cloud sect, Flying Rainbow sect, Flowing Wind sect, and Golden Sword sect. Among them, Big Dipper sect, Boundless sect, and White Bone sect were the strongest. The other 6 sects were slightly weaker. However, the Fire Cloud sect was one of the strongest among the 6 sects and could be ranked as the 4th strongest sect. Other than the 9 great sects, there were also a few top 1-star middle-rank sects that were not to be underestimated. For example, 9 Heaven Cities Earth Fiend sect, Azure River District's Azure Sun sect, Jiang District's Xiantian sect, Liaoyue District's Spiritual Heart sect, Kun'an District's Cloud Ocean sect, Fengchang District's Evil Shadow sect, and so on. These sects all had at least 2 6-star perfected persons. The strongest Sun Moon sect and Azure Thunder sect in the Azure Cloud District only had 1 6-star perfected persons. They couldn't be compared at all. In the blink of an eye, Yixing had been in 9 Heavens City for 10 days. Today, he left the 7 treasures inn again and headed to the east side of the city with the silver-winged demonic eagle. Yixing heard that there were going to be a few auctions in the east side of the city today. He had plenty of star crystals on him, so he went to take a look. Today's news ban. I really want to update 3 times, but my head hurts. I can only update 2 times. I'll work hard tomorrow. Taking advantage of the news ban, I'll ask my brothers and sisters for free recommendation tickets on Monday. Chapter 362. 9 Heavens City was very big. Just the East District alone stretched for 700 miles and there were many auction houses. 3 of the auction houses were the most famous. They were the Big Dipper Auction House, the Immeasurable Auction House, and the White Bones Auction House. From their names, one could tell that these 3 auction houses belonged to the Big Dipper sect, the Immeasurable sect, and the White Bones sect. The Big Dipper sect, the Immeasurable sect, and the White Bones sect were the 3 strongest sects among the 9 great sects. Their auction houses were the safest in the true Xian region. Naturally, they were the most famous. Senior brother, it's him. He's the one who injured me on the 2nd floor of the 7 Treasures Inn. He even slapped the Black Widow. On the street outside the Big Dipper auction house, the Fire Cloud sect disciple Yan Lin stood beside a young man in a red robe and pointed at Yixing's back. That day, after Yan Lin and the Black Widow left, they did not disturb Yixing again. However, they had been secretly investigating Yixing's identity. However, no one in Nine Heavens City knew Yixing. Therefore, Yixing's identity had never been discovered. Yan Lin and the Black Widow suspected that Yixing was a disciple of a two-star sect. Without investigating Yixing's identity, they naturally did not dare to find trouble with Yixing. Today, the Big Dipper auction house was going to auction a high-grade spirit pill that could strengthen one's body, the body-strengthening pill. Although martial artists rarely cultivated their physical strength after becoming martial saints, no one would dislike having a stronger physical strength. Therefore, many perfected persons had come to the Big Dipper auction house today for the body-strengthening pill. Shui Yan and Yan Lin had also come for the body-strengthening pill. However, they had bumped into Yixing. Beside Yixing was a silver-winged demonic eagle that was more than 3 feet tall. It was very eye-catching as it walked on the street. Yan Lin had noticed Yixing from afar. Shui Yan followed Yan Lin's gesture and glanced at Yixing. Then, his gaze landed on the silver-winged demonic eagle beside Yixing. Shui Yan said, "The silver-winged demonic condor can reach level 3 when it reaches adulthood. Its strength is equivalent to a 1-star sage to a 6-star sage. His pet beast is not bad. I wonder if it has reached adulthood." Yan Lin said, "I didn't see this silver-winged devil condor that day, but this guy's strength is very strong. He can injure me in one move. He should be able to fight with an ordinary 2-star sage." Shui Yan's gaze revealed a trace of seriousness. He was ranked 4th on the Earth Profound ranking and was an elite among the elites of the younger generation of the true Profound domain. However, compared to Yixing, he clearly paled in comparison. Shui Yan said, "Let's go. Let's go meet him." The two of them quickly moved forward and soon caught up with Yixing. "Hey, brother." Shui Yan took a few steps forward and stood in front of Yixing. He said, "I'm Firecloud Sect's disciple, Shui Yan. Back at the 7 Treasures Inn, my junior sister was a little rash and offended you. Please forgive her." With regards to Yixing's identity, Shui Yan also suspected that he was a 2-star sect's disciple, so he was very polite. Ranked 4th on the Earth Profound ranking, he was definitely famous in the true Profound domain. When Shui Yan reported his identity, many nearby warriors were shocked and looked at Shui Yan. They were even more surprised by Yixing's identity. He was young and had a silver-winged devil condor by his side, but Shui Yan was actually so polite to him. "I'm Yixing." Since the other party was polite, Yixing also faced him coldly and said, "I accidentally injured your sect's disciple that day. I hope she won't bear a grudge." Shui Yan chuckled and said, "You're too kind. Junior sister Yan told me that it was because the Black Widow was too vicious that caused young Master Yi to speak up for her. This is a chivalrous act. Junior sister Yan definitely doesn't bear a grudge against young Master Yi." Yan Lin observed Yixing's expression from the side. She saw that Yixing was very calm and his eyes were as calm as an ancient well. He didn't feel any pressure because of Shui Yan. She was even more convinced that Yixing had an extraordinary background. Yan Lin said, "Young Master Yi is a peerless genius with heaven-defying strength. How would Yan Lin dare to bear a grudge? As long as young Master Yi isn't angry with Yan Lin, it's fine." Many warriors heard the conversation between the three and became even more curious about Yixing's identity. Firecloud Sect's Shui Yan and Yan Lin were both outstanding figures among the younger generation of the true Profound domain, but they were actually so polite to this young Master Yi. Especially Yan Lin, her tone was even flattering. What was the identity of this young Master Yi that made the two of them be so polite and respectful? The outstanding figures among the younger generation of the true Profound domain were all on the Earth Profound ranking, but there didn't seem to be anyone named Young Master Yi on the Earth Profound ranking. Yixing sneered in his heart. This silly woman really thought he was a 2-star sect's disciple. He still remembered how arrogant she was on the 2nd floor of the 7 Treasures Inn. Hee. I'm not angry. Yixing chuckled and continued walking towards the Big Dipper auction house. As he walked, he said, "The two of you are also here to participate in the auction, right?" Shui Yan and Yan Lin followed and walked side by side with Yixing. Shui Yan said, "That's right. I heard that there will be a body-refining high-grade spirit pill, body-strengthening pill, being auctioned at this auction. We're here to try our luck. Young Master Yi, let's go in together." After walking a few steps, Shui Yan said again, "Young Master Yi is so young and has already reached the cultivation of a half-step perfected person. Furthermore, you have heaven-defying combat strength. I wonder which sect you are from and which senior's disciple are you?" Although Shui Yan believed that Yixing was a two-star sect's disciple, he wasn't completely sure. Naturally, he had to clarify things. Yixing knew that the reason why Shui Yan and Yan Lin were so polite to him was because they suspected that he had a great background. If they knew that he was a disciple of a one-star sect in the Qingyun region, they would probably turn hostile immediately. Yixing smiled and said, "I come from a faraway place. Even if I told you, Brother Shui wouldn't know." "Ha! But it won't be long before Brother Shui understands." Yixing was going to participate in the Young Hero Assembly. At that time, his identity would naturally be exposed. Shui Yan naturally didn't know that Yixing was referring to the Young Hero Assembly that would take place in half a month. Shui Yan couldn't ask about Yixing's background, so he could only feel resentful. The three of them quickly arrived at the Big Dipper auction house. Suddenly, Yixing's expression turned cold and he stopped walking. Yixing's gaze shot towards the four martial artists not far away. His eyes revealed a sharp aura. Of the four martial artists, 2 were perfected person and 2 were martial saints. Yixing knew them all. The 2 perfected person were both elders of the Holy Wind sect. One was a 1-star perfected person, Fang Qing, and the other was a 2-star perfected person, Feng Yuhan. The 2 of them were in the Qingyun mountain range and had participated in the killing of the Falling Star sect's team. The 2 martial saints were Feng Yu and Fang Zhe. Yixing had met the 2 of them in the Qingyun ancient land. Now, Feng Yu's cultivation had broken through to the 8-star martial saint realm and Fang Zhe had become a 7-star martial saint. The 2 perfected person elders of the Holy Winds sect had brought their 2 most outstanding juniors to the Nine Heavens City to participate in the Young Hero Assembly. The Nine Heavens City was huge. It had a radius of 1,000 miles and a population of more than 100 million. The probability of Yixing meeting martial artists from the Qingyun region in the Nine Heavens City was extremely low. However, because Yixing and the 4 martial artists of the Holy Winds sect had come to participate in the Big Dipper auction house's auction, they had unexpectedly bumped into each other. Shui Yan noticed Yixing's gaze and looked towards Fang Qing, Feng Yuhan, Feng Yu, and Fang Zhe. His eyes turned slightly and said, "Young Master Yi, do you know the 4 martial artists?" Fang Qing and Feng Yuhan were already middle-aged. They were only 1-star and 2-star perfected persons. Feng Yu and Fang Zhe were young, but they were not even 9-star martial saints. The 4 of them were obviously not worthy of Shui Yan's attention. With Yixing's talent, Shui Yan naturally believed that he could be a 2-star sect disciple from another region. However, in Shui Yan's opinion, Fang Qing and the other 3 martial artists were definitely not from another region. Every region was extremely vast. It had a radius of more than 1,000,000 miles, or even a few million miles. There was no reason for the 1-star and 2-star perfected person elders to bring 2 7-star and 8-star martial saint juniors to another region. This was an extremely dangerous act. If the 4 martial artists were martial artists from the true Xian region, then Yixing knew them. Didn't that mean that Yixing was likely to be a martial artist from the true Xian region? At this moment, Shui Yan and Yan Lin could not help but have this suspicion in their hearts. As soon as Shui Yan finished speaking, Fang Qing, Feng Yuhan, Feng Yu, and Fang Zhe felt Yixing and Shui Yan's gazes and turned their heads to look over. When Feng Yu and Fang Zhe saw Yixing, they immediately exclaimed, "Yixing! You are actually not dead yet." As for Fang Qing and Feng Yuhan, after the initial shock, their eyes lit up. Yixing was a huge treasure trove. Since he was not dead and had even come to the 9 Heavens city, wouldn't that mean that he had delivered a treasure to them? Today's outbreak, on Monday, please recommend me. Chapter 363. When the 4 of them saw Yixing, they quickly walked over. Feng Yuhan was a 2-star sage, and the 4 of them obviously followed his lead. He stopped in front of Yixing and said, "Little bastard, the Flying Cloud sect was right. You really didn't die." Feng Qing sneered, "He, you're really good at running. You actually came to 9 Heavens City. However, even if you run to the ends of the earth, you can't escape from us." While speaking, Feng Qing clenched his fist as if he had caught Yixing in the palm of his hand. Feng Yu and Feng Zhe had been slapped by Yixing in the Qingyun ancient land. The 2 of them hated and feared Yixing. Now that the Falling Star sect had been destroyed and Yixing was being chased by several sects, they no longer feared Yixing, only hatred. The 2 of them looked at Yixing with gloating expressions. Feng Yu sneered, "Yixing, aren't you awesome? Aren't you the #1 genius in the Qingyun region? Now you've become a stray dog. Let's see how you're going to be awesome. Since you've met the elders of my Divine Wind sect, today will be the day you die. Before you die, I'll return the humiliation you've given me 10 times over." Yixing stared coldly at the 4 people of the Divine Wind sect with murderous intent hidden in his eyes. If it weren't for the Heavenly Stars auction house prohibiting fighting, Yixing would have let the silver-winged demonic eagle attack and tear the 4 people of the Divine Wind sect to pieces. Yixing, the #1 genius in the Qingyun region. Shui Yan heard the words of the 4 people of the Divine Wind sect and looked at Yixing with a 180-degree change. His expression turned cold. Yan Lin, who was beside him, was livid and her eyes were burning with anger. They thought that he was a disciple of a 2-star sect, but in the end, he was a martial artist from the Clear Sky District. The Clear Sky District was only a very ordinary remote district among the 27 districts of the true mystic domain. It was ranked below the 20th place. A junior martial artist from Clear Sky Earthly Cloud had been treated as a disciple of a 2-star sect. When they had spoken, they had even tried to curry favor with Yixing. Now that they knew the truth, how could Shui Yan and Yan Lin not be angry? Yixing saw the changes in Shui Yan and Yan Lin, but he only glanced at them indifferently, and his gaze continued to fall on the 4 people of Divine Wind sect. Between Yixing, Shui Yan, and Yan Lin, there was not much enmity. However, with the Divine Wind sect, there was an enmity of annihilation. In particular, Feng Yuhan and Feng Qing had participated in the assassination of the Falling Star sect's team. The deaths of sect master Lu Tianyuan and War Pavilion elder Qi Dosheng were directly related to the 2 of them. When Yixing saw the 2 of them, he couldn't wait to kill them on the spot. "You want my life? When the auction is over, I will wait for you outside the auction house." Yixing coldly glanced at the 4 martial artists of Divine Wind sect, and then walked towards the auction hall. Feng Yuhan and Feng Qing looked at each other, and there was surprise in their eyes. Yixing dared to ask them to meet outside the auction house after the auction. The 2 of them couldn't believe it. In their opinion, Yixing would seize any opportunity to escape. Feng Qing transmitted his voice to Feng Yuhan, "This kid's escaping skills are top-notch. He may want to paralyze us. Maybe he will escape before the auction is over. We have to keep an eye on him." Feng Yuhan nodded, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He looked at Yixing's back and said, "Kid, let's see what tricks you can play." Shui Yan also looked at Yixing's back and shouted, "Stop." Yixing stopped, but he didn't turn around and said, "What's the matter?" Shui Yan's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Yixing. There was a sneer on his face, and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared coldly at Yixing. Shui Yan said coldly, "Good kid, you've been pretending all along the way." Yixing said, "I'm me, who am I pretending to be?" Shui Yan said, "You know it in your heart." Yixing said, "I'm just a junior martial artist from a faraway place. I don't have any backing in 9 Heavens City, but I'm upright and upright. Who do I need to pretend to be? Shui Yan's face was ashen. Yixing indeed only said that he came from a faraway place. He never said that he was a disciple of a two-star sect. The reason why Shui Yan and Yan Lin thought so was all their own guesses. Qingyun region was nearly 1,000,000 miles away from Nine Heavens City. Wasn't it a very far place? Yixing was right. Shui Yan would only be asking for a rebuff if Yixing was pretending. He skipped the topic and said, Yixing, you hurt my junior martial sister at the Seven Treasures Inn, how dare you? We have to settle this properly, we can't just let it go like this. Yixing looked at Shui Yan with a faint smile and said, didn't you say that your junior martial sister was a little impulsive and offended me, and you want me to forgive her? I won't lower myself to the same level as a woman. I've already forgiven her. What other problems do you have? Bullsh *T. Yan Lin walked up, her eyes filled with anger and said, a disciple from a trash sect dares to say that he forgives me? I'm not done with you for the Seven Treasures Inn. Shui Yan looked coldly at Yixing and said, kneel down and kowtow to junior martial sister Yan 3 times, and I'll spare your life. Yixing glanced at Shui Yan indifferently and said, Shui Yan, you think too highly of yourself. If you want to stand up for your junior martial sister, you'll have plenty of chances at the Young Hero Assembly. If you can't wait, I'll wait outside the auction house after the auction. You can come too. After saying that, Yixing continued to walk into the auction house. Shui Yan patted Yan Lin's shoulder and glanced at the 4 people from the Divine Wind sect. Junior martial sister Yan, don't worry. After the auction, as long as he's still alive, I'll make him kneel in front of you and beg for mercy. Yan Lin clenched her fists and said with a fierce look, I'll make him suffer a fate worse than death. Not far away, Fang Qing sent a sound transmission to Feng Yuhan, it seems that Yixing has offended someone in the Nine Heavens City. We can't let others beat us to it. We have to be the first to kill him and get his storage ring. Feng Yuhan nodded and said, let's go. We'll keep an eye on him. He's not a real person, so he's not qualified to enter the VIP room. He can't escape from us. Young master, demonic beasts are not allowed to be sold in the auction house. Please leave them in the demonic beast area. Yixing was stopped by a noble servant at the entrance of the Big Dipper auction house. Yixing nodded and left the silver-winged demonic eagle in the demonic beast area. Then he entered the auction house. In the Big Dipper auction house, only martial artists from the 9 upper sects or real people in the astral realm were qualified to enter the VIP room. Marquises who were not from the 9 upper sects could only enter the VIP room if they followed a real person. Marquises who were alone could not buy a VIP room even if they were rich. They could only stay in the auction house. The Big Dipper auction house had a large indoor area, which was equivalent to a football field. There were tens of thousands of seats inside. The first floor was the hall, and the second floor was the VIP room. Yixing was not qualified to go to the VIP room, so he bought a seat in the hall that was not too front. In order to keep an eye on Yixing, the 4 people from the Divine Wind sect did not go to the VIP room. Instead, they sat down not far from Yixing. The known treasures on Yixing were a high-grade flying spiritual tool, 2 high-grade spiritual weapons, and a mid-grade storage ring. These treasures were extremely rare even in the 9 Heavens City's auction house. After a few auctions, there might not even be one of these treasures. Therefore, the 4 people from the Divine Wind sect did not care about what was going to be auctioned. They only wanted to keep an eye on Yixing. When Yixing left the Big Dipper auction house, they would kill Yixing and obtain Yixing's storage ring. That would be the biggest gain. Shui Yan and Yan Lin were disciples of the 9 upper sections. They were also real people in the astral realm. Naturally, they bought a VIP room. The VIP room they chose was not far from Yixing. Standing at the window of the VIP room, they could see Yixing clearly. Shui Yan and Yan Lin were the same as the 4 people from the Divine Wind sect. They were also paying attention to Yixing to prevent Yixing from slipping away during the auction. In fact, it was not only Shui Yan and Yan Lin who were paying attention to Yixing in the VIP room. In another VIP room, there was also a young man and a young woman who were paying attention to Yixing. The woman was wearing a tight black robe and was nestled in the man's arms. There was a vertical crack on her chest, revealing two snow-white hemispheres. The man stretched out a big hand and stroked the snow-white hemispheres. His eyes were coldly staring at Yixing, who was in the hall on the first floor. There was a third update at midnight. Chapter 364. This brat is just a country bumpkin from the Qingyun region. I thought he was the sixth disciple of the two-star sect who came to the true Xian region to watch the young hero assembly. The Black Widow stared coldly at Yixing. At the same time, she gently twisted her body in Shi Wenxie's embrace, purposely moving her exposed breasts closer to Shi Wenxie's hand. "Senior brother, you have to seek justice for me." I was slapped by him and became the joke of the Nine Heavens city. Shi Wenxie was younger than the Black Widow. He was only 22 years old this year. However, the disciples of the sect were ranked by strength. Shi Wenxie was already a two-star enlightened master, and his strength was unrivaled in the same realm. Naturally, he was the senior brother. Yixing was seen by Shui Yan and Yan Lin outside the Big Dipper auction house. In fact, he was also seen by Shi Wenxie and the Black Widow who came to the Big Dipper auction house. However, Shui Yan and Yan Lin went up to Yixing to get close to him, while Shi Wenxie and the Black Widow just watched from afar. Shui Yan, ranked 4th on the Earth Profound ranking, peak level 2 Astral Realm, Fire Cloud sect disciple. Shi Wenxie, ranked 10th on the Earth Profound ranking, had unrivaled battle strength, Earth Fiend sect disciple. Now that Shi Wenxie's cultivation had broken through to Astral Realm level 2, Shui Yan, a peak 2-star enlightened master, was most likely not his opponent. However, Shui Yan was a Fire Cloud sect disciple. If the two met, Shui Yan's position would definitely be higher than Shi Wenxie's. Shi Wenxie believed that he was stronger than Shui Yan in every aspect. How could he be willing to be suppressed by Shui Yan? Naturally, he wanted to avoid meeting Shui Yan, so he just watched from afar. The four warriors of the Divine Wind sect recognized Yixing, and Yixing's identity was exposed. Shi Wenxie and the Black Widow saw all of this. Originally, the Black Widow also suspected that Yixing might be a disciple of a two-star sect, so she endured and didn't take revenge. Now that she knew that Yixing was just a junior from the Qingyun region, how could she let him go? However, the Black Widow was not a match for Yixing. If she wanted to deal with Yixing, she could only rely on her senior apprentice brother, Shi Wenxie. Shi Wenxie's hand, which was gently caressing her, suddenly exerted force. He squeezed into the Black Widow's clothes through the tear and grabbed one of her snowy peaks, kneading it forcefully. As Shi Wenxie kneaded, he said fiercely, "Little slut, don't worry. He won't be able to escape from my palms." Under Shi Wenxie's kneading, the Black Widow's body went limp and she started moaning. Shi Wenxie kneaded the Black Widow for a while before releasing it. He then boldly sat down on the luxurious leather chair at the side. He was tall and his muscles were like dragons. He looked like a human-shaped machine. Even if he was sitting down, he was almost as tall as Black Widow when she was standing. There's nothing good in today's auction. Only the body strengthening pellet can catch my eye, and the body strengthening pellet will definitely be the last item to be auctioned. I'm very free in the early stages of the auction. As he spoke, evil General Shi Wen spread his legs and said, "Little slut, come over here and give me a blowjob." When Yixing entered the auction hall, there were already many people seated inside. Moreover, there was an endless stream of people coming in. Not long after, the auction hall, which could hold tens of thousands of people, was full. Although most of them were noble star marquises, there were also quite a number of astral realm enlightened persons. There were at least 1,000 of them. This didn't include those in the VIP rooms. Compared to the Qingyun region, the total number of enlightened persons in the southern and northern sects was only 200 to 300. More than 1,000 astral realm enlightened persons was a huge number. And this was only the number of enlightened persons that the auction had attracted. The number of enlightened persons in Nine Heavens City was far more than this. From this, it could be seen that the Qingyun region was indeed very backward in the true Xian domain. It couldn't even be compared to Nine Heavens City. When the auction hall was full, an extremely voluptuous enlightened person walked out from behind the auction stage. This enlightened person not only had a voluptuous figure, but she was also very tall. She was wearing a tight-fitting silk dress that perfectly outlined her figure. The dress had a slit that extended all the way to her buttocks, revealing her 2 slender legs. It looked very seductive and pleasing to the eye. More than 80% of the martial artists that came to participate in the auction were old masters. When their gazes landed on this enlightened person, their eyes lit up with excitement. One could imagine that this enlightened person didn't even need to stir up the atmosphere. Just by standing on the stage, it was enough to keep the entire auction in an intense state. The enlightened person clearly wasn't just standing on the stage. She first bowed to the crowd. When she bowed, the 2 snow-white lumps in front of her chest surged violently, as if they were about to burst out. Yixing immediately heard the sound of countless saliva being swallowed. The enlightened person clearly controlled her movements very precisely. When the 2 lumps in front of her chest were about to pop out, she had already stood up. Although her chest was still trembling, there was no possibility of it popping out. This made many martial artists feel that it was a pity. After the enlightened person bowed, she revealed a sweet smile and said, "Tiangang Auction Hall's number 7 auctioneer, Bicky, at your service. Today's auction has a total of 72 items. The first item is a set of mid-grade star crystals. There are 1,000 of them. The starting price is 50,000 low-grade star crystals. Auction officials, please make your bids. 50,000, 55,000. 60,000. 97,000, 100,000. As soon as Bicky's voice fell, the voices of people bidding rose one after another. Soon, the price rose to 100,000 low-grade star crystals. Yixing looked at the crowd and was a little surprised. He had always thought that mid-grade star crystals were the same as low-grade star crystals. He didn't expect that mid-grade star crystals could be auctioned as an item. Moreover, there were many people bidding. Most of the bidders were enlightened persons in the astral realm. Normally, only enlightened persons could use mid-grade star crystals. Other than enlightened persons, only level 3 array masters could use them. Yixing knew that the exchange rate between mid-grade star crystals and low-grade star crystals was 100. This meant that according to the normal exchange rate, 1,000 mid-grade star crystals could be exchanged for 100,000 low-grade star crystals. However, according to the intensity of the auction, the actual price should be much higher than that. As expected, the price kept rising. In the end, a 3-star enlightened person bought the set of mid-grade star crystals for 130,000 low-grade star crystals. 1,000 mid-grade star crystals were sold for 130,000 low-grade star crystals. This was a 130 exchange rate, which was much higher than the normal exchange rate. Thus, the true value of a mid-grade star crystal was more than 100 low-grade star crystals. However, according to the amount of star power, one mid-grade star crystal was the same as 100 low-grade star crystals. However, mid-grade star crystals could replace low-grade star crystals. However, mid-grade star crystals couldn't replace mid-grade star crystals in many aspects. For example, setting up a level 3 array formation and restoring astral energy were all uses of mid-grade star crystals. Low-grade star crystals couldn't do that. However, every inch had its advantages and disadvantages. Although mid-grade star crystals could completely replace low-grade star crystals were still needed under certain circumstances. For example, a sect couldn't lack low-grade star crystals. Take a 1-star sect as an example. They had a large number of disciples. If they gave each of them a middle-grade star crystal to cultivate, although it could replace the use of low-grade star crystals, it would be a complete waste. It was simply a reckless waste of natural resources. The Big Dipper sect was a superior one-star sect. It was also one of the 3 most powerful sects in the True Xian region. It had many disciples and consumed a huge amount of low-grade star crystals every year. If mid-grade star crystals were used to replace low-grade star crystals, the Big Dipper sect would definitely go bankrupt. Therefore, the Big Dipper auction would always take out mid-grade star crystals to auction and convert them into low-grade star crystals. This way, the exchange rate was 100 and they could make a lot more money. For an enlightened master, mid-grade star crystals were far more useful than low-grade star crystals. A large number of enlightened masters were willing to spend more than the normal exchange rate to obtain mid-grade star crystals. The second auction item was a high-grade spirit herb. A high-grade spirit elixir usually required several high-grade spirit herbs as raw materials. If a high-grade spirit herb was obtained, one would have to find other spirit herbs as raw materials and then ask an alchemist to refine the elixir. It was very troublesome. Therefore, high-grade spirit herbs were much less valuable than high-grade spirit elixirs. However, for cultivators who were alchemists themselves, every upper-grade spirit herb they could get their hands on was worth it. There would always be a use for them, so there were many people bidding for them. In the end, it was won by a Star Dipper Realm alchemist. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.